Chapter 676. Seeing Yun Jian walking towards Duan Shi step by step, Officer Wu and the rest were a little scared. No matter what, Yun Jian was still a young girl. Even though she was an advanced Special Forces soldier, Yun Jian was not holding anything in her hands at that moment. On the other hand, Duan Shi was holding a kitchen knife. The person who was not holding a weapon and the person who was holding a weapon. The person who had the weapon definitely had the upper hand. If you come any closer, I'll kill you. Duan Shi was so scared that his whole body was trembling. He retreated step by step until he could not retreat any further. Then, he stopped and pointed the knife at Yun Jian. Didn't you want this? Yun Jian weighed the recording device in her hand. She suddenly stopped smiling and turned to look at Duan Shi with her cold eyes. Duan Shi's eyes turned and he stared at the recording device in Yun Jian's hand. In the next second, Duan Shi's eyes flashed viciously. He held the knife and rushed towards Yun Jian as fast as he could. Duan Shi held the knife in one hand and slashed it towards Yun Jian from top to bottom. His other hand was quite agile as he knew how to snatch the recording device in Yun Jian's hand. "Give it to me," Duan Shi said ferociously. As he spoke, his ferocious expression made most of the people present gasp. Crazy. This Duan Shi was really crazy. Just as Officer Wu and the rest were about to close their eyes and not dare to watch what was going to happen next, Yun Jian suddenly reached out her hand. At that moment, Duan Shi was holding the kitchen knife and slashing it towards Yun Jian. "Sister! Little sister!" Xiao Yunju and Duan Li screamed almost at the same time. Both of them were scared out of their wits and screamed at the top of their lungs. The kitchen knife in Duan Shi's hand was aimed at Yun Jian's head, but Yun Jian actually reached out her hand to catch it. That was a kitchen knife. The tip of the knife was extremely sharp. Even if one's finger accidentally slipped on the tip of such a kitchen knife when cutting vegetables, one would be injured. If he accidentally used too much force when cutting vegetables, it could cause the wound to bleed profusely. If this kitchen knife were to cut into a person's body, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even though Yun Jian had killed an assassin of the Inferno Ring in Xueqi Elementary School, Officer Wu had not seen it. After all, Yun Jian had killed an assassin from the Inferno Ring. At most, Officer Wu and the others questioned everyone who was present at the scene and made a statement. As for how Yun Jian killed the Inferno Ring assassin, they had only heard about it from the parents and teachers of Xueqi Elementary School. "Be careful!" Officer Wu couldn't help but shout again. Although the people present were afraid to see the bloody scene, Officer Wu and the others were men after all. They had guts and wouldn't close their eyes. Duan Shi's knife was already above Yun Jian's head, and Yun Jian had already reached out her hand. Most of the people present thought that Yun Jian would definitely be injured by Duan Shi. Even Duan Shi revealed a sinister smile, thinking that he would be able to snatch the recording device away from her. In the next second, Yun Jian reached out. Her fair and smooth hand accurately grabbed the tip of the kitchen knife in Duan Shi's hand with her thumb and index finger at lightning speed. The knife in Duan Shi's hand was only 2 centimeters away from Yun Jian's flesh. If he continued to cut, he would be able to cut off Yun Jian's thumb. However, no matter how hard Duan Shi tried, Yun Jian's thumb and index finger pinched the tip of the knife tightly, causing Duan Shi's hand to be unable to move. You. Duan Shi suddenly saw this scene and screamed in shock. Officer Wu and the others, who were standing far away, saw this scene and were all shocked as if they had seen a ghost. Duan Shi was holding the handle of the knife. The tip of the knife was the sharpest part to begin with. Yun Jian was actually able to accurately grab the tip of the knife with the fastest speed and control her strength to prevent Duan Shi, who already had an absolute advantage holding the handle, from continuing to cut down with the knife. This Yun Jian, how strong must her fingers be to be able to catch Duan Shi's knife without batting an eyelid? Chapter 677. Although Officer Wu and the others had not participated in the Special Forces training, they had been doing morning runs and exercises every day to strengthen their bodies. But suddenly, they saw Yun Jian reach out to catch the kitchen knife that Duan Shi was swinging at her. What's more, Yun Jian used her fingers to pinch the tip of the knife, stopping Duan Shi's attack just 2 centimeters away from her skin. It was important to note that a kitchen knife was quite smooth. To pinch the tip of the knife with just the strength of one's hand and prevent the knife from cutting downwards. Yun Jian's finger strength and hand strength were not something that a normal person could compare with. Officer Wu and the others were stunned. Duan Shi had just recovered from his shock and was about to pull the knife back to cut Yun Jian again. Yun Jian moved her leg sideways. She lifted her leg and without looking, she stepped on Duan Shi's knee. Ah! Duan Shi screamed. His knee was kicked by Yun Jian, and it went soft instantly. The next second, Duan Shi knelt down with a thud from the pain. He had unintentionally knelt in the direction of Yun Jian. Duan Shi's legs went soft, and his hand loosened. Yun Jian reached out and easily snatched the kitchen knife from Duan Shi's hand. She turned her hand and held the knife to Duan Shi's neck as he knelt in front of her. Duan Shi was so scared that he was sweating all over. In the next second, he heard Yun Jian's calm and emotionless voice. "You don't deserve to be Chestnut's father. Killing you will dirty my hands." With Yun Jian's cold kitchen knife on his neck, Duan Shi could not care about anything else. He was about to be killed by Yun Jian. I beg you. Don't kill me. I was wrong. Don't kill me." Duan Shi's somewhat handsome face was extremely pale. He was so scared that his whole body was shaking. Even if someone held him down, he could not stop shaking. In the face of life and death, most people would be afraid. Don't. Officer Wu thought that Yun Jian was really going to kill Duan Shi. He quickly ran forward to stop her. Duan Shi was scum, but if Yun Jian really killed him, then Yun Jian would not be able to escape the punishment of the law. Immediately, a police officer ran up and handcuffed Duan Shi's hands, bringing him back to the police station. After Yun Jian put away the kitchen knife, Officer Wu walked over and asked Yun Jian, "Can you bring the child back to the police station with us to make a statement?" Yun Jian nodded as she held Duan Li's trembling hand. Regardless of whether Duan Shi's abuse of the child constituted domestic violence or whether he had to go to jail, at least he had assaulted a police officer and tried to snatch Yun Jian's recording device. And it was in front of the police. He would definitely be detained. After such an incident, Duan Li and Duanya would definitely have to go to the police station to make a statement. Today's incident was actually caused by her, so Yun Jian was determined not to leave Duan Li and Duanya behind. After making a statement at the police station, Duan Shi was temporarily detained. As for Duan Shi's sentence, it would take some time. However, according to Officer Wu's explanation, Duan Shi would definitely go to jail. Even if he did go to jail, it would not be for long. The exact time would have to wait for the verdict. After making a statement, Officer Wu personally sent Yun Jian and the other three out of the police station. Some of the female police officers and police officers who were working at the police station saw them and took a few more glances at Yun Jian. When they saw Yun Jian, everyone present was a little shocked. The person who could be personally escorted out by Officer Wu was actually a young girl. At this moment, Officer Wu and Yun Jian were already standing at the entrance. "Regarding these two children, I can send them to the Children's Welfare Institute." Officer Wu looked at Duan Li and Duanya and said to Yun Jian. "No need, I'll take care of them," Yun Jian said with a smile. To Yun Jian, having two more mouths to feed did not affect her at all. The reason why Yun Jian adopted Duan Li and Duanya was because Xiao Yunju begged her. Chapter 678. Seeing that Duan Li had agreed to follow Yun Jian, Officer Wu did not stop her. Usually, adopting a child required a lot of procedures, but Duan Li was not an orphan. At least her father was still alive. Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier and one of Gu Yunjian's men, so she was naturally trustworthy. Therefore, Officer Wu registered and let Yun Jian take the children away first. The following procedures would not be too complicated because Yun Jian's identity was there. No matter how complicated the procedures were, Officer Wu would help Yun Jian with it. Of course, if he could not do it, there was still Gu Yunjian. "Okay, then I'll leave these two children to you. If you need anything, you can contact me any time." Officer Wu nodded at Yun Jian and then said sincerely. He was also very sincere. Not to mention anything else, just Yun Jian's ability alone was enough to convince him. "Okay." Yun Jian nodded at Officer Wu. After saying goodbye, she turned and walked across the road with Duan Li, Duanya, and Xiao Yunju. Duan Li held Duanya's hand. Duanya did not say a word, but she was very obedient. It was already dinner time at Duan Li's house. After so many things happened, they waited until now to give their statements at the police station. It was already 7 in the evening. Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju had some food, but Duanli did not eat anything. Duanya only ate a little bit of porridge that could not even be considered porridge. Duanli, Duanya, and Xiao Yunju were about the same age. Now that they were all growing up, children at this age needed to eat and replenish their nutrition. However, the food that Duanli and Duanya usually ate was probably not enough, let alone nutritious food. Yun Jian held Duanli and Xiao Yunju while Duanli held her sister, Duanya. The four of them walked across the road. Yun Jian suddenly turned and asked Duanli, "Chestnut, are you hungry? I'll take you to eat." Okay. Sister, I'm hungry again. Let's go eat." Although Xiao Yunju had eaten, he was still a growing child. Naturally, he would get hungry easily. Duanli lowered her head slightly, but she still raised her head to look at Yun Jian. Her small eyes seemed to be glowing as she said, "Miss, thank you." Yun Jian smiled and rubbed Duanli's head. Then she brought Duanli, Duanya, and Xiao Yunju to a nearby restaurant. On the other hand, Adam and Lan Su went on their way after bidding farewell to Yun Jian. Of course, the reason they traveled together was because Lan Su's suite was in the same direction as Dong Ruan's villa. Lan Su and Adam continued to move forward. The two of them were competing to see who could run faster. The passers-by could only feel 2 gusts of wind blowing past them. It had to be said that both Lan Su and Adam were competitive people. It was not until Lan Su reached the door of her suite that she turned to leave. She left Adam with a snort as she left. Humph. Ha ha. Adam touched the bridge of his nose. This was the first time he had competed with a woman in a race. Moreover, their speed was on par. After laughing for a while, Adam's handsome face disappeared. He turned around and walked back to Dong Ruan's villa. Adam was staying at Dong Ruan's house as Siyi's friend. Moreover, there were many rooms in the villa. Adam had just returned to Dong Ruan's house when he met Emo-sen halfway. "Who's that woman?" Mo-sen crossed his arms and looked at Adam from the side as he asked. "You saw her." Adam's tall figure walked over. Chapter 679. Emo-sen nodded. Then he asked again, "Who's that woman?" "She works for young madam." Adam chuckled. Then, he looked at Emo-sen and walked over to put his arm around Emo-sen's shoulder. He asked in an experienced manner, "Aren't you very free? Why are you asking this?" "Young master is back." Emo-sen did not answer Adam directly. Instead, he changed the topic. Adam nodded. He had guessed it too. Emo-sen followed Ce back to an Hun organization. Now that Emo-sen was back, Ce would naturally be back too. Let's go home." Adam could already guess that their young master must have gone to look for Yun Jian again. Hence, Adam put his arm around Emo-sen's shoulder and walked back home like brothers. Yun Jian brought Duanli and her children to a restaurant nearby. This restaurant was called Jiangxi Stir Fry. It was a famous delicacy nearby. Jiangxi's menu was suitable for the public's appetite. Of course, some people from other provinces did not eat spicy food. Jiangxi's dishes had a taste that one would never get tired of eating. Of course, everyone had their own preferences. However, Yun Jian liked it very much. Yun Jian could eat a little spicy food, but Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Yun Jian did not eat spicy food. Hence, when they were ordering, Yun Jian asked the boss to prepare non-spicy dishes. They ordered 3 meat and 3 vegetable dishes. When the dishes were served, Duanli and Duanya were dumbfounded. Duanli and Duanya had never eaten such delicious food since they were born. Although the school's food was already considered a delicacy to them, the school's cafeteria food was not as good as the freshly fried dishes outside. Duanli and Duanya were practically wolfing down the food. "Eat slowly." Yun Jian smiled with her eyes squinted. "There are a total of 16 chicken drumsticks. There are 4 of us. 4 for each of us." Xiao Yunju calculated quickly and put the drumsticks into everyone's bowls. Xiao Yunju was very smart. He was afraid that Duanli and Duanya would not eat, so he put the meat into everyone's bowls separately. In fact, Yun Jian had also noticed that Duanli and Duanya had not touched the meat since the dishes were served. It was likely that the 2 children had never eaten meat before. Even if there was meat at home, Duan sure would never let Duanli and Duanya touch it. These 2 children had probably developed a habit and didn't dare to eat meat anymore. I'm not eating. You guys share it. Yunjian narrowed her eyes, her long eyelashes fluttering. Duanli blinked her small eyes. She looked at Yunjian and said to Yunjian, if you don't want to eat, we won't eat either. Duanli put down her chopsticks as she spoke. As soon as Duanli put down her chopsticks, Duanya, who was sitting beside her, also put down her chopsticks. Duanya had no idea what was going on. She only knew that her sister had put down her chopsticks, and she had to follow suit. If elder sister doesn't want to eat, Xiao Zhu won't eat either. Xiao Yunzhu also learned to put down his chopsticks. Yunjian smiled when she saw their reactions. She picked up a chicken drumstick with her chopsticks, gave it a gentle bite, and swallowed it. Xiao Yunzhu and Duanli looked at her and happily picked up their bowls and chopsticks to eat the chicken drumsticks in their bowls. Duanya remained silent, but she also picked up her chopsticks with her clumsy hands like Duanli. Yunjian looked at the bright smiles on the three children's faces. She subconsciously curled up the corners of her lips. She had probably never felt so warm in her previous life or this life. At that moment, Yunjian was using her chopsticks to pick up a chicken drumstick. She had just lowered her head and was about to swallow the chicken drumstick when a gentle and mellow male voice sounded beside her. Is the drumstick good? Chapter 680. Yunjian turned to look and saw Ce standing in front of her. His jet-black hair accentuated his fair and handsome face, and his casual outfit made him stand out. Ce was the kind of person who got more and more attractive the more you looked at him. Yunjian couldn't help but be stunned when she turned to look at him. Do I look good? Ce walked over and rubbed Yunjian's head affectionately. Then, he reached out and lifted Xiao Yunzhu up from Yunjian's seat. Ce lifted Xiao Yunzhu and gently placed him beside Duanli. Duanya sat beside Duanli. The tables here were facing each other, but the stools were arranged in a row. If three people squeezed together, they could still sit together. Xiao Yunzhu, Duanli, and Duanya were small to begin with. Thus, when Ce brought Xiao Yunzhu to Yunjian, the three of them could sit in a row without cramped space. Ce smoothly sat beside Yunjian. Then, he leaned his head back and placed his hands on his forehead. Just like that, he turned to look at Yunjian. Yunjian paused. Then, she gently placed the chicken drumstick back into the bowl. How did you know we were here? Yunjian asked. She wasn't surprised that Ce was back. She was surprised that he knew she would be here for dinner. Moreover, even if Adam had met Ce, he wouldn't have known that she was here. This was because after Adam and Lan Su parted ways with her, something unpleasant had happened to her at Duan Li's house. How could I not know where you are? Ce kept her in suspense. His handsome lips curved upwards. His sharp features were extremely handsome. Yunjian didn't want to get to the bottom of it. What's more, Yunjian's focus wasn't on this at all. Oh! Yunjian pursed her lips slightly, then picked up her chopsticks again and picked up the drumstick. If you don't want it, then give it to me. Ce stretched out his slender and fair fingers. His fingers were well-defined, slender and beautiful. At this moment, this good-looking hand directly grasped Yunjian's jade-like hand. He pressed against Yunjian's hand and moved the drumstick in Yunjian's hand to his face. Yunjian turned to look at Ce and pursed her lips. At this moment, the chicken drumstick in Yunjian's hand had already been controlled by Ce and was being fed to him. His hand was close to hers, and her hand was holding the chopsticks. This scene was so embarrassing that it was hard to imagine. Yunzhu watched the scene in bewilderment, still unable to wrap his head around it. Duan Li and Duanya were watching as well. Duan Li's mouth agape. The three children had yet to recover from their shock. Ce had already taken a bite of the drumstick that Yunjian had just eaten. Once he did so, he let go of Yunjian's hand. Ce finished the entire drumstick in no time. He did not even spare the bones. This was the drumstick that his Xiao Jian had eaten, so it was naturally delicious. Yunjian pointed at the other three drumsticks in her bowl and told Ce, if you're hungry, these are all for you. I'm full. Ce tilted his head to look at her, the indulgence in his gaze clear. Chestnut, this is my Ce Gidge. Isn't he good-looking? Xiao Yunzhu quickly introduced Ce to Duanli when he snapped out of it. The latter studied Ce and nodded heavily. By then, Yunjian had already picked up the other drumstick and took a bite. A large hand reached over again. Yun Jian turned to look and asked Ce suspiciously, "Aren't you full?" Chapter 681. It wasn't until Ce ate Yun Jian's drumstick that Xiao Yunju shouted at Ce, "Big brother Ce, you can't steal big sister's drumstick. That's big sister's drumstick. You're so naughty." Xiao Yunju immediately defended Yun Jian. As soon as Xiao Yunju finished speaking, he looked at Ce and calmed down. "Big brother Ce, are you still hungry?" Xiao Yunju asked. Ce looked up and smiled at Xiao Yunju. "Big brother Ce, if you're still hungry, you can have Xiao Zhu's portion." "Big sister is hungry too," Xiao Yunju said as he pushed his drumstick in front of Ce. Ce smiled and pushed his drumstick back to Xiao Yunju. He said, "I'm not hungry." "Then why did you steal big sister's drumstick?" "The teacher said it's wrong to steal other people's food," Xiao Yunju said self-righteously. Ce smiled awkwardly. "Hurry up and eat. I'll take you home when you're done," Yun Jian urged. Then she said, "When we get home later, I'll have to make your beds. It's already 7 o'clock. It's not good for children to sleep too late." Yun Jian's words made sense. Xiao Yunju, Duan Li, and Duanya were very obedient. Later, Xiao Yunju and Duan Li even competed to see who could finish their food first. The two children were having a lot of fun. Duan Li had never played so happily in her life. Therefore, she kept a smile on her face, as if she wanted to vent all the happiness in her life. "Big sister, big brother Ce, I'm done." Xiao Yunju was the first to look up. "Me too." A bright and satisfied smile bloomed on Duan Li's delicate face. Ce went to the counter to settle the bill and brought the three children out of Jiangxi restaurant with Yun Jian. When they got home, Qin Yiru and her brother Yun Yi, who had just rushed back from Qin Yu's house, Yun Jian told them about Duan Li and Duanya. Now that Qin Yiru and Yun Yi knew that Longmen City's new cruise was owned by Yun Jian, they did not object to Yun's adoption of Duan Li and Duanya. On Duan Li and Duan Li and Duanya. S and Duan Li's and Duanya's and Duanya. In the end, Duan Li, Duanya, and Yunju addressed Qin Yiru as Mama Qin. Qin Yiru was a kind person. Of course, kindness and adoption depended on the occasion. If it was when their family was poor, perhaps Qin Yiru would not adopt another child after adopting Xiao Yunju. After all, if their family was so poor that they did not have enough food, they would not be able to survive if they had a few more mouths to feed. Qin Yiru was not a good person either. Now that their family's condition was improving because of Yun Jian, Qin Yiru was more than happy to adopt Duan Li and Duanya. Yun Yi welcomed the children as well, but Yun Yi only went downstairs to show her face before going back upstairs. "Brother," Yun Jian called out to Yun Yi. Yun Yi had just returned from Qin Yu's hometown today. "Xiao Jian, what's up?" Yun Yi asked in return. "Brother, why are you going upstairs so early? Aren't you going to play a little longer downstairs?" Yun Jian asked. Yun Yi blushed suddenly before he answered Yun Jian quickly, "I'm catching up on my homework. School starts tomorrow." "Xiao Jian, I'll go upstairs first." Yun Yi went upstairs as he spoke. Staying at Qin Yu's house, Yun Yi did not feel like going home anymore. It was only on the last day that Yun Yi returned to Longmen City. Chapter 682. Yun Yi had always been an obedient student. Be it at home or in school, Yun Yi had always completed her homework on time. When Yun Jian first heard that Yun Yi had not completed her homework, she was stunned. Yun Jian was excellent in her studies, but she was often the one who did not complete her homework. Yun Jian basically never did the homework assigned by school. Yun Jian would start school tomorrow, but to Yun Jian, homework did not exist. It was different for Yun Yi. If Yun Jian believed that Yun Yi did not do her homework, it would be more unacceptable than the sky falling down. After all, Yun Yi's hard work was witnessed by everyone. Back then, Yun Yi had gotten into DE Senior High School from Xinjiangjin Junior High based on her own abilities. It was not without her hard work. A trip to Qin Yu's house and Yun Yi did not even do her homework. This was unheard of. Yun Jian's lips twitched, but she did not say anything. "Xiao Jian, have you guys eaten? Look at how skinny these kids are. Why don't I make you guys something to eat?" Qin Yiru said as she headed to the kitchen. "Mama Qin, we've eaten. We're full. Jie brought us there." Xiao Yunju told Qin Yiru as she patted her tiny tummy that was devoid of any excess fat. Qin Yiru smiled at that. A life like this was something that Qin Yiru could only come by luck, so Qin Yiru was content. After they were done tidying up the girls' rooms, the group went to bed. Duanli and Duanya were still young, and Duanya would be scared to sleep alone, so Duanli and Duanya slept in the same room. After Duanli, Duanya, and Xiao Yunju fell asleep, Yunjian went back to her room to sleep as well. Ce pulled Yunjian to his room right in front of Qin Yiru. Knowing that Ce would not do anything, Yunjian did not argue. Once they were in Ce's room, Ce hugged her out of habit. "Are you okay this afternoon?" Ce's muffled voice came from the top of her head. Yunjian had planned to sleep, but when she heard Ce's question, she snuggled into Ce's arms and answered, "I'm fine. I just don't know who those people are." Ce was asking about what happened at Xiao Yunju's school in the afternoon. Someone was trying to assassinate Yunjian. Ce's heart skipped a beat when he heard the news. Although Ce knew that Yunjian would be fine, it was still a big deal to him. "It's the Inferno Ring. It should be Tai Jingong's gang. I'll handle it," Ce told Yunjian as he sniffed the lingering fragrance in her hair. Yunjian fell asleep quickly in Ce's warm embrace. The next day, Yunjian woke up in Ce's arms. After her morning run with Ce, Yunjian went to Longmen Junior High School with a hot egg and 2 steamed buns that Qin Yiru had given her. Just as she reached the school gate, Yunjian bumped into Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xinyi, whom she had not seen for a long time. "Jian, I'm here." Chen Xinyi waved desperately at Yunjian the moment she saw Yunjian. Yunjian smiled faintly when she saw Chen Xinyi and turned to go over. "Jian, you're early." Chen Xinyi hooked her arm around Yunjian's hand affectionately when she came over, leaving Zhang Xiaofeng alone. Hey, that's my master." Zhang Xiaofeng chased after her when he snapped out of it. Chapter 683. Yunjian followed Chen Xinyi and Zhang Xiaofeng from the school gate to the school building. The winter break had been going on for more than 20 days. When they first arrived at school, they bumped into familiar faces that they could not remember. They would often bump into students from other classes in school, but they did not know each other's names. This was a common occurrence in a student's life. Students from different classes would often bump into each other when they went to the washroom. However, after 3 years of middle school, they might not even know each other's names. Yunjian and the rest had just arrived at the school building when a handsome boy walked towards them. "Hi, you guys are here so early?" Ling Yichen waved as he walked towards Yunjian and the rest. When they first met, Yunjian did not have a good impression of Ling Yichen. However, after spending some time together, Yunjian did not hate Lin Yichen that much. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xinyi's opinion of Lin Yichen had also improved significantly. Go. Didn't you come earlier than us?" Chen Xinyi waved at Ling Yichen as if she wanted to chase Lin Yichen away. Hee. Ling Yichen rubbed his head, a little embarrassed. Chen Xinyi continued to hold Yunjian's hand and ran ahead. Ling Yichen used to be a playboy in school. He had the potential to hook up with girls and was more diligent in changing girls than changing clothes. However, ever since he started hanging out with Yunjian and the rest, Ling Yichen had never had a girlfriend again. "Hey, you 3, wait for me." Ling Yichen reached out and hooked his chin domineeringly. Then, he suddenly realized that Zhang Xiaofeng had already chased after Yunjian and Chen Xinyi. He quickly shouted and chased after them. "I'm not waiting, so I'm not waiting." Humph. Chen Xinyi turned around and made a funny face at Ling Yichen. She giggled and pulled Yunjian even faster. With a smirk, Yunjian followed Chen Xinyi and her friends back to the classroom, fooling around. Ling Yichen was not in the same class as Yunjian and the rest, so they parted ways not long after they reached the teaching block. After returning to the classroom, the homeroom teacher began to collect tuition fees. In 1999, the internet wasn't as convenient as it was now. Students in this era would bring money with them to class. Once the tuition fees were collected and the textbooks were distributed, it meant that the winter break was over and the new semester had officially begun. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xinyi were sitting in their seats with their heads down. They were a little depressed. A new semester had just begun. Some students in the class were also talking about how the winter vacation had ended before it even started. They hadn't had enough fun. Fortunately, They only received their textbooks today, and the school ended at 11 o'clock in the afternoon. The school would only officially start the next day, so the teachers did not plan to keep the students until the evening. After class in the afternoon, Zhang Xiaofeng was the most excited. Master, I have an uncle who opened a taekwondo dojo in Longmen City. Let's practice there today. Zhang Xiaofeng said excitedly. His father had an old friend named Xueqi. Zhang Xiaofeng called him uncle, and Zhang Xiaofeng was close to this uncle since he was young. Since Yun Jian was willing to teach Zhang Xiaofeng real skills, Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini, and Chen Sini had been waiting for Yun Jian to teach Zhang Xiaofeng something after school. Now that Zhang Xiaofeng had an uncle who opened a taekwondo dojo, Zhang Xiaofeng suggested that they go there to practice. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Chapter 684. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at Zhang Xiaofeng's words. Zhang Xiaofeng, well done. You want Jian Jian to compete with that uncle of yours, don't you? How dare you beat around the bush? Chen Sini scolded Zhang Xiaofeng fervently now that she had something to use against him. Heh heh. Zhang Xiaofeng rubbed his nose and chuckled awkwardly when Chen Sini saw through his thoughts. As they spoke, the group had exited the school and was walking out of the school gate. Just as Yun Jian stepped out of the street and headed for the opposite street, a female voice rang behind her. However, it was not directed at Yun Jian. Hi, Yichen, where are you guys going? Do you mind bringing me along? The rather bold female voice came from behind. Yun Jian turned around and saw the owner of the voice. The owner of the voice was a girl around 18 years old. The girl had short hair and looked like a boy. Moreover, she was dressed in men's clothing, which made her look more like a tomboy. However, it could be seen from the contours of her face that she was a girl. She did not look like a boy in terms of appearance. Sis Lin, why are you back? Ling Yichen's mood brightened instantly when he saw the girl dressed like a boy. He turned to ask her. I'm visiting my alma mater. I remember that you're in your 3rd year of junior high now, right? The girl who was addressed as Sis Lin was called Meng Lin, and she was replying to Ling Yichen with simple words. Yeah. Ling Yichen nodded and introduced Meng Lin to Yun Jian and the rest. This is Sis Lin. She's our senior, I guess. She's 2 years older than us and has graduated now. She's in her 2nd year of senior high in another province. Ling Yichen could not help chuckling as he spoke and continued, Sis Lin's results are great. She helped me a lot when I was in my 1st year of junior high. While Ling Yichen was introducing her to the others, Meng Lin was not shy. She boldly extended her hand towards Yun Jian and the rest. Hi everyone. If you don't mind, you can call me senior sister. I also graduated from Longmen No. 1 Middle School. With that, Meng Lin chuckled. Yun Jian slightly expressed her goodwill to Meng Lin. All right, I heard your voices just now. You said you were going to the Taekwondo dojo, right? You don't mind bringing me along, right? Meng Lin clenched her fists. After displaying her might like a boy, she laughed out loud. Of course. He then turned to Yun Jian and said, Sister Lin has been learning judo since she was young. She's a judo expert now. Yun Jian, you two can spar. Ling Yichen and the rest were well aware of Yun Jian's strength. However, it was common for 2 people with some strength to spar with each other. Sure. Yun Jian smiled faintly. Her beauty was intriguing. She did not dislike Meng Lin. Meng Lin's personality was very down-to-earth, just like a boy's. This also meant that she did not scheme against each other like girls. This was a good feeling for Yun Jian. Although they had met a new Meng Lin, it did not affect them much. The group walked towards the Taekwondo dojo that Zhang Xiaofeng's family had just opened. After passing through a few streets, they passed through the downtown area. After passing through the downtown area, they saw Zhang Xiaofeng's Taekwondo dojo by the side of the road. Yun Jian and the rest walked into the Taekwondo dojo. Chapter 685. In this group of people who were dueling, the oldest was only around 25 years old, while the youngest was only 14 or 15 years old. Of course, there was also a group of kids from 7 to 13 or 14 years old sitting next to the dojo. It could be seen that the people who were fighting one-on-one were only limited to the oldest group of people in the Taekwondo channel. The fights were carried out in batches. The people fighting were divided into 2 groups based on their age. The older ones were fighting against the older ones while the younger ones were fighting against the younger ones. At this moment, the people who were fighting were the group of people between the ages of 14 and 25. When Yun Jian entered the dojo, she saw a middle-aged man in his 40s with white hair standing next to the two people fighting. It was undeniable that this middle-aged man with white hair was Zhang Xiaofeng's uncle, Xuelin Wei. Uncle! Zhang Xiaofeng walked over with Yun Jian and the others when he saw Xuelin Wei. Xiaofeng, you're here? Xuelin Wei asked when he saw Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Xuelin Wei's dojo had only been open for a short time. It could be considered a new dojo. In fact, Xuelin Wei was an international retired mercenary. It was no longer a secret that he was one of the best in the world. Because of his experience as a mercenary and Xuelin Wei's own skills, he had a good grasp of Taekwondo. Therefore, when the dojo opened for business, people immediately signed up to learn it. In just a few days, the dojo was almost full. These are my friends. Zhang Xiaofeng pointed at Yun Jian and the others. His finger stopped at Yun Jian and he introduced her to Xuelin Wei. Uncle, this is my master, Yun Jian. I've told you about her before. She's amazing. Zhang Xiaofeng's introduction made Xuelin Wei take a closer look at Yun Jian. Yun Jian was also looking at Xuelin Wei when she was being sized up. Xuelin Wei had a kind of wild aura. At the same time, his rough appearance was hard to forget. Xuelin Wei also had a special difference. He had a long black beard on his mouth, which was deliberately left there. That long beard added to Xuelin Wei's mysteriousness, as well as his powerful strength. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. The first time she saw Xuelin Wei, her intuition told her that he was not simple. Hello. Yun Jian nodded at Xuelin Wei. Good. Little friend, nice to meet you. Xuelin Wei hurriedly replied. Uncle, my master is very powerful. Why don't you two spar? Zhang Xiaofeng praised Yun Jian again. He couldn't wait to see Yun Jian compete with his uncle Xuelin Wei. A duel between two experts. This scene was absolutely spectacular. After all, Yun Jian was strong, but his uncle was not weak either. His uncle Xuelin Wei was also a retired member of the International Mercenary Group. After Zhang Xiaofeng finished speaking, he turned to Yun Jian and said, Master, my uncle is a member of the Gale Mercenary Group. He just retired from the Gale Mercenary Group not long ago. His strength is definitely not comparable to ordinary people. If you two spar, you'll definitely benefit a lot. Zhang Xiaofeng was just anxious to see his uncle spar with Yun Jian. He knew that Yun Jian was very strong, and he also knew that Yun Jian did not want to fight with a weakling. Therefore, he revealed Xuelin Wei's identity and tried to get Yun Jian to spar with Xuelin Wei. Chapter 686. Just as Yun Jian heard about the Gale mercenaries, Meng Lin exclaimed in surprise, Gale mercenaries? I know them. They're a mercenary group formed by various international alliances, and they're under the management of the International Gale Corporation. I heard that the Gale mercenaries under the Gale Corporation recruits elites from all over the world all year round, but only a handful of people can join the Gale mercenaries. Your uncle is actually from the mercenary group. That's amazing. Meng Lin had heard of the Gale mercenaries before and was dumbfounded by what she heard. To Meng Lin, she was just an ordinary student. Even though she had learned judo and was considered a judo expert, she was still intimidated by an international mercenary group like the Gale mercenaries. The biggest difference between the Gale mercenaries and the kosher mercenaries was not the word mercenary. It was that the Gale mercenaries were under the management of the International Gale Corporation. The kosher mercenaries was an underground organization, similar to an assassin organization like the Hun group. The most obvious difference was that the members of the kosher mercenaries were basically made up of assassins. Of course, the kosher mercenaries would recruit international elites as well, but in comparison, the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries were all assassins who had survived through brutal training. Be it internationally or in their respective territories, unless they were killed, these people were important figures who could hold their own. Xuelin Wei, who was praised by Meng Lin, was standing beside her. He was more or less embarrassed to hear the compliment. After all, he had retired from the military and wanted to simply open a Taekwondo gym in Longmen City and live out the rest of his life peacefully. Although Xuelin Wei was a mercenary of the Gale Mercenary Group, he was nothing in the Gale Mercenary Group. There were many elites in the Gale mercenaries. Zhua Linwei's ability to join the Gale mercenaries was proof of his ability. It was undeniable that he was very capable. However, in a place like the Gale mercenaries where talents were outstanding, someone as capable as Zhua Linwei would be buried. This was the truth. Therefore, Zhua Linwei was embarrassed to hear Meng Lin praise him. Meng Lin's praise made many students in the Taekwondo dojo pricked up their ears. Especially the students who learned Taekwondo here. Many people present wanted to know the strength of their coaches. Meng Lin didn't have any other intentions. She was just surprised and said what she knew. However, among Zhua Linwei's students, there was a ruffian in his 20s. He pretended to be knowledgeable, so he asked Zhua Linwei, "Coach Zhua, I know a little about the international mercenary groups. The Gale mercenary group is also divided into several teams. What's the name of your team?" The Gale mercenaries were indeed divided into several teams, just like the advanced special forces. Gu Junjian was the chief instructor while Yun Jian's team Monarch was just one of the teams in the advanced special forces. The Gale mercenary group was also divided into teams in the same way. Every assassin organization or mercenary group had their own way of governing. At least, the Gale mercenaries were divided into teams of a few people. Zhua Linwei did not hide it when he was pressed to this extent. He said, "Fury." Chapter 687. Rampage was just a small team of the Gale mercenaries. Just like Gu Yunjian's team Monarch, it was just a small team. However, even if Team Monarch was just a small team, it was now the spokesperson of the advanced special forces. Yun Jian's 2 missions, including the annihilation of the Inferno Ring, had completely spread Team Monarch's reputation. As soon as Zhua Linwei spoke, the ruffian boy exclaimed in surprise. This boy clearly knew about the international mercenary groups and mercenary groups. "Oh my god! Rampage! Coach Zhua, you're from Rampage!" The ruffian guy exclaimed immediately, his tone as if he was afraid that Zhua Linwei did not know about Rampage. "Hey, Ningbin, explain it to us. What's Rampage?" Some of the guys around him were interested and asked quickly. After all, not everyone knew about the Gale mercenaries. Perhaps everyone knew what a mercenary group was, but if it was a mercenary group with a precise name like the Gale mercenaries, most of them would not know about it. "Hey, you guys don't know about it?" Since there were girls around, especially Yun Jian and Chen Xinyi, the ruffian guy called Ningbin kept them in suspense and sneered. "Nonsense, tell us if you want to." Some of the guys around could not stand Ningbin, so they shouted. Ningbin was keeping them in suspense, thinking that it was very obvious and impressive that he was pretending to be knowledgeable in front of the girls. However, the other guys were naturally displeased when they saw Ningbin showing off in front of the girls. Being urged, Ningbin said proudly, "Hey, there are only 120 people in Rampage, but I heard that among these 120 people, the top 20 are all on the international rankings. Hackers, assassins, secret agents. Although they're not particularly high on the rankings, they're all kings of the elites." Ningbin's boast caused many people present to gasp. Ningbin, on the other hand, thought that he was impressive. He turned to look at Zhua Linwei and exclaimed, "Coach Zhua, you're really from Rampage. That's unbelievable." "I'm just one of the weakest in Rampage," Zhua Linwei said. At this point, Zhua Linwei smiled awkwardly. It was obvious that he was not bluffing. "You're amazing too." Ningbin flattered Zhua Linwei. From the beginning until now, Ningbin's attitude towards Zhua Linwei had changed drastically. Everyone present shifted their gazes to Zhua Linwei and started talking among themselves. Zhua Linwei, on the other hand, just as they were talking, Yun Jian's melodious voice was heard, "The Gale mercenaries group." As she spoke, she turned to Zhua Linwei and asked, "Since you're from Rampage, you should know Cotton, don't you? How's he doing now?" Cotton was a top figure in the Gale mercenary group. He was one of the top 3 hackers in the international hacker rankings. At the same time, his strength was also widely acknowledged. Yun Jian had interacted with Cotton in her past life. Due to their dealings in firearms, they had been friends for some time. Therefore, when she heard about the Gale mercenaries group, she naturally asked. When Zhua Linwei heard Yun Jian's words, he shouted in surprise, "You know Commander Cotton?" Chapter 688. Zhua Linwei's gaze shifted from the others to Yun Jian. His eyes widened as he stared at Yun Jian in disbelief. In the Gale mercenaries, Cotton's position was equivalent to the leader of the Gale mercenaries. The Gale mercenaries and the Kosha mercenaries had different names. The boss of the Kosha mercenaries was equivalent to the leader of the Gale mercenaries. However, the Gale mercenaries were formed by mercenaries from all over the world. The leader of the Gale mercenaries was not as important as the boss of the Kosha mercenaries. For the Kosha mercenaries, as long as it was the boss of the Kosha mercenaries, they would do whatever the boss said. However, the Gale mercenaries were different. In the Gale mercenaries, everyone in the alliance had the right to speak. In other words, the leader of the Gale mercenaries could not do whatever he wanted. As for Cotton, he was personally invited back by the leader of the Gale mercenaries. Cotton's power in the Gale mercenaries was equivalent to the leader of the Gale mercenaries. Sometimes, Cotton's words were even more effective than the leader's. That was the difference. A character like Zhua Linwei would never have the chance to talk to Cotton. Therefore, when he heard Yun Jian call Cotton a kid, Zhua Linwei was so surprised. After all, Yun Jian was only a 16-year-old girl. Zhua Linwei had never mentioned Cotton before. Since Yun Jian mentioned him, it meant that she knew this person and even knew Cotton. Seeing Zhua Linwei so surprised, everyone present was stunned. Who was Cotton? Who was the leader of the Gale mercenaries? If Zhua Linwei, who had retired from the Gale mercenaries, was so surprised, then this person was definitely not simple. For a moment, everyone present turned to look at Yun Jian. Who is Cotton? Ningbin suddenly felt that Yun Jian had stolen his limelight. Although he was unhappy, Ningbin would not insult in front of Yun Jian. There was no other reason except that Ningbin pretended to know a lot in front of Yun Jian. If it weren't for the two girls, Yun Jian and Chen Sini, he probably wouldn't even bother to say anything one-sided. Yun Jian and Chen Sini were both good-looking. In comparison, Yun Jian was prettier, so Ningbin had long taken a fancy to her and wanted to show off himself. Ningbin's question was actually directed at Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian didn't even look at Ningbin. She looked at Zhua Linwei and answered his question. Yes, I do. Not only did they know each other, but when Yun Jian first entered the hacker world, Cotton could be considered her elder. In the end, in less than 2 months, she cracked the broken program in Cotton's hands and made a mess of it. Cotton had to pay a huge price for it. He lost $1 billion. Of course, $1 billion was nothing to Cotton. Cotton wasn't angry. Later on, Yun Jian worked with Cotton on a batch of firearms business. Of course, the time they spent together was only a few days. Yun Jian knew a lot of people, and Cotton was just one of them. Yun Jian's simple sentence stunned Zhua Linwei. Even as a member of the Gale mercenary group, he didn't have the ability to meet Cotton, but Yun Jian actually knew Cotton? Ning Bin, who was standing at the side, was very unhappy with the feeling of being ignored. He patiently asked Yun Jian, "Little beauty, who is Cotton? Can you tell me?" As soon as Ningbin finished speaking, Zhua Linwei answered for Yun Jian, "Cotton is the leader of our Gale mercenary group. His position is even higher than our leader. A small character like me doesn't even have the right to meet him." Everyone gasped when they heard Zhua Linwei's words. Chapter 689. Zhua Linwei looked at Yun Jian in surprise. He took 2 deep breaths and asked, "Young friend, may I ask who you are?" The word "yes" was delayed for a long time. It was enough to show Zhua Linwei's surprise. Hearing Zhua Linwei's words, everyone present stared at Yun Jian, as if they wanted to stare a big hole in Yun Jian's body. Yun Jian just gently pursed her lips. Her delicate and perfect little face quickly revealed a bright smile. She answered Zhua Linwei, "My name is Yun Jian. Didn't Zhang Xiaofeng mention it before?" Yun Jian's words made Zhua Linwei frown. Of course, Zhua Linwei didn't intend to hear Yun Jian's true identity from her. After all, there were so many people present. Even if Yun Jian wanted to say it, she couldn't say it in front of so many people. Of course, after Yun Jian said it, many people present felt that it was meaningless. TSK, who does she think she is? I think she's just bragging. A boy couldn't help but shout. Bragging, bragging, bragging my ass. If you don't have the ability, why don't you brag for me too? When Zhang Xiaofeng heard it, he quickly jumped out to speak for Yun Jian. At the same time, he fiercely scolded the boy. That boy was scared by Zhang Xiaofeng's aggressive words. Of course, Perhaps because he knew the relationship between Zhang Xiaofeng and Xuelinwei, the boy who scolded Yun Jian just now didn't dare to say anything. Hee, I didn't expect you to be so pleasing to the eye. When Chen Xinyi saw Zhang Xiaofeng speaking for Yun Jian, she couldn't help but praise Zhang Xiaofeng. Better than you. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xinyi bickered. Then, he ran over to Yun Jian. Cough, cough. Xuelinwei coughed softly, forced to look at Yun Jian squarely. At this moment, Xuelinwei really wanted to spar with Yun Jian. Yi Chen, your friends are really interesting. Meng Lin also stepped forward and said. Then, she reached out her hand to stroke her short hair. Like a boy, she extended her hand to Yun Jian and said, Beauty, you don't mind being friends with me, right? Let's get to know each other again. My name is Meng Lin. I'm your senior from 2 years ago. Meng Lin reached out to Yun Jian boldly. Everyone liked to make friends with the strong, and Meng Lin was no exception. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at the same time and reached out her hand. Yun Jian. Yun Jian stretched out her hand and repeated her name to Meng Lin. It could be considered that she intended to befriend Meng Lin. To be honest, Yun Jian quite liked bold and manly women like Meng Lin. From the beginning, Yun Jian had a good impression of Meng Lin. Hey, are you guys done talking? Xiaofeng said that you're very strong. If it's convenient, why don't you spar with me? Xuelinwei liked to spar. To him, challenging the strong was also one of life's greatest pleasures. Therefore, he extended his hand to Yun Jian to express his thoughts. That's right. Master, why don't you spar with my uncle? Besides, everyone wants to see what you're capable of, right? Zhang Xiaofeng did not forget his initial goal. He quickly spoke to Yun Jian with a hint of pleading in his tone. As soon as Zhang Xiaofeng spoke, most of the people present agreed. Indeed, most of the people present wanted to see Yun Jian's strength. After all, to most of them, they were waiting for a good show. Chapter 690. The questions from before, including Gale mercenaries and Yun Jian's acquaintance with Cotton, were quickly tossed to the back of everyone's mind. At this moment, there was only one thing that everyone present was interested in. Yun Jian was going to fight Coach Xuelinwei one-on-one. The students in the Taekwondo dojo were especially excited at this moment. One of them was the coach of the Taekwondo dojo, a former mercenary of the International Fierce Wind Mercenary Group, who had just retired from the army. The other one was an underage girl, who knew a big shot that even Xuelinwei, a mercenary, was afraid of. What's more, Zhang Xiaofeng had always praised Yun Jian, so everyone present was eager to see how powerful Yun Jian was. Compared with Coach Xuelinwei, who was more powerful, Yun Jian or Xuelinwei? Yun Jian, come on! Hearing that Yun Jian was going to fight Xuelinwei one-on-one, Meng Lin, who had just become friends with Yun Jian, stretched out her right hand and made a gesture of encouragement to Yun Jian. Okay, Yun Jian replied calmly, but there was a glimmer of light in her eyes. Come on! Xuelinwei also stretched out his hand and signaled Yun Jian, and at the same time, he announced loudly. Yun Jian's eyes flashed, and she curled her lips. Then she walked towards the place where the students were fighting one-on-one. There was a simple arena on the ground. Master, come on! Master, come on! Master will win! When Yun Jian walked to the opposite side of Xuelinwei, and they looked at each other, Zhang Xiaofeng's desperate shout was heard. The people present were automatically divided into two groups. Of course, the group of students who were training in Xuelinwei's Taekwondo dojo naturally cheered for Xuelinwei. However, the one who shouted the loudest was undoubtedly Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Xiaofeng was shouting with all his strength. Brat, Uncle has also treated you well. You're not cheering for me and you're cheering for her. Even if it's just for show, you're too cruel to Uncle's heart. Xuelinwei and Yun Jian stood facing each other. At this moment, he couldn't help but tease Zhang Xiaofeng. His tone was even joking. Hey! Zhang Xiaofeng stuck his tongue out awkwardly, but he did not stop cheering for Yun Jian. Then let's begin. Xuelinwei changed his joking tone and turned to look at Yun Jian. When he spoke, there was a trace of seriousness. Let me make it clear in advance, little friend. I won't go easy on you, so you can't go easy on me either. Show me what you've got. Let's compete fairly. Regardless of whether you lose or I lose, this is just a friendly duel. Xuelinwei said. It had to be said that Zhua Linwei was quite far-sighted. After all, some people would lose their dignity if they lost a duel. After the duel, they would cry and shout that they were going to die. They would even treat the opponent who defeated them as an enemy. It wasn't like Yun Jian had never encountered this kind of situation. It had happened a few times before. Therefore, Yun Jian preferred Zhua Linwei's way of talking about this kind of thing. I have no objections. Let's begin. Yun Jian also became serious. Zhua Linwei was a member of the Gale mercenary group. This also meant that his strength was not ordinary. Yun Jian would not underestimate any opponent. At the same time, she would not let go of any opportunity to win. In short, she would not go easy on Zhua Linwei for any reason. Chapter 691. When Yun Jian said that they could begin, a lot of people felt their hearts clench. Zhua Linwei turned his sharp eyes to Yun Jian. He looked directly at the girl who dared to challenge him one-on-one. Zhua Linwei had a big body and a thick waist. His body was sturdy and powerful. He had long trained his muscles. Because of his many years of experience as a mercenary, he had a decisive advantage over Yun Jian in terms of physical strength. Although Yun Jian was strong, her physical strength was far from her previous lives. In her previous life, Yun Jian did not look like a burly woman, but at least she had enough physical strength to compete with Zhua Linwei. In this life, Yun Jian persisted in training every day. However, her physical strength was not enough. After all, she had only trained for half a year. In her previous life, she had trained for 11 years in a life-and-death situation. In short, one's strength was not something that could be honed in a short period of time. Ha! Zhua Linwei shouted loudly. Then he stretched out his thick arms and ran towards Yun Jian at his fastest speed. The strength in his hands did not decrease at all. Whether it was in her previous life or after her rebirth, Yun Jian's strength was not her strength. Physical strength was only one point. Yun Jian had always relied on tactics and methods to win. When she saw Zhua Linwei rushing towards her, she did not panic or panic. Oh my God! I feel like this girl will be beaten into a meat patty by Coach Zhua. A boy could not help but exclaim when he saw this scene. When the people present saw this scene, they all gasped. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were not surprised. If you ask why Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were not worried that Yun Jian would not be able to defeat Zhua Linwei, it was because Yun Jian had killed Wolf Blade, one of the top 10 assassins in the world, right in front of Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Unlike Gu Junjian had received news that Wolf Blade was killed by Yun Jian. When Wolf Blade was killed, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others had seen it with their own eyes. Such terrifying skills. How could he possibly lose? Zhang Xiaofeng and the others knew that Yun Jian wouldn't lose, but they couldn't be sure that Yun Jian could beat Zhua Linwei. After all, Zhua Linwei, who had been in the Gale mercenary group, was not weak. No one could maintain absolute skills, and it was impossible for them to not improve at all. If they didn't train, their skills would deteriorate. Therefore, under such circumstances, a one-on-one duel was the most direct and easiest way to see who was stronger. Aren't you guys nervous? When Meng Lin saw that Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xinyi, and Ling Yichen were not worried about Yun Jian losing at all, she was a little suspicious and took the opportunity to ask. Hey sis Lin, just watch. Ling Yichen kept her in suspense. Meng Lin turned around suspiciously and looked towards the arena. However, Zhua Linwei had already reached out his thick arm to grab Yun Jian. He tried to grab Yun Jian's arm and at the same time, give Yun Jian a somersault in order to win in one move. However, before Zhua Linwei could touch Yun Jian's arm, Yun Jian's body was like a coiling snake. She leaned to the side and dodged Zhua Linwei's grab in an instant. Zhua Linwei was a little surprised for a second. Then, he turned around and tried to suppress Yun Jian to prevent her from attacking further. However, Zhua Linwei didn't know that Yun Jian was strong because of her speed, accuracy, ruthlessness, and ferocity. Yun Jian bent sideways and circled from Zhua Linwei's front to his back. At the same time, she took out her butterfly knife. Before Zhua Linwei could turn around to suppress her, her unsheathed knife was already pressed against Zhua Linwei's back, where his heart was. Chapter 692. The butterfly knife was still in Yun Jian's palm and had yet to be unsheathed. In other words, even if Yun Jian were to stab Zhua Linwei's heart in the back with the butterfly knife, Xuelinwei would only be hit by the scabbard. He would be fine. How could the knife hurt someone if it was not unsheathed? Everyone was stupefied. It was only then that Xuelinwei realized that if Yun Jian had unsheathed the saber that was pressed against his back, he would be dead by now. Xuelinwei had brute strength and his speed was not considered slow. However, the reason he lost so quickly was simple. Yun Jian was too fast, so fast that Xuelinwei could not react at all. Moreover, if a person only had brute strength, wouldn't it be useless if he could not hit his opponent? Just when everyone present was so shocked that they were speechless, Ningbin's cry of surprise rang out. F***CK. The little beauty one. This shout completely pulled the souls of everyone present back to reality. Although Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xini, and Ling Yichen had seen Yun Jian's skills before, they could not help but shiver from the bottom of their hearts when they witnessed Yun Jian's skills again. Meng Lin also widened her eyes at the scene in front of her. At the same time, she gulped a few times and could not help but criticize in her heart. In any case, she had grown up practicing judo and was older than Yun Jian. But what about her skills? If she, Meng Lin, was the one who fought Yun Jian, she dared to bet that she would have been subdued by Yun Jian before she could even lift her hand. Ha ha ha. At that moment, Xuelinwei's heroic voice was heard. Everyone turned to look at Xuelinwei. They saw that Yun Jian had already put away the butterfly knife and habitually hid it in her pocket. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Xuelinwei said. At the same time, he turned around and looked straight at Yun Jian. Thank you for letting me win. Yun Jian lowered her eyes. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she spoke humbly. Ha ha ha. Like I said, my master. How could he lose? At this moment, the happiest person was probably Zhang Xiaofeng. At this moment, Zhang Xiaofeng stood in front of everyone and smiled without caring about his image. Zhang Xiaofeng was quite good-looking, but his smile completely ruined his image. That's enough. Chen Xini was also happy for Yun Jian. Of course, at the same time, she did not forget to tease Zhang Xiaofeng. Hee hee. Zhang Xiaofeng laughed and ran towards Yun Jian. As he ran, Zhang Xiaofeng even shouted exaggeratedly, Master, how could your move be so powerful? Teach me quickly. Yun Jian had gradually begun to teach Zhang Xiaofeng moves. After half a semester, Zhang Xiaofeng had almost mastered the chopstick throwing. Half a semester was not enough for Zhang Xiaofeng to master the chopstick throwing to perfection, and Yun Jian did not ask Zhang Xiaofeng to stop. Moreover, the purpose of coming to this taekwondo dojo today was to teach Zhang Xiaofeng moves. Yun Jian did not intend to hide it. She stretched out her jade-like hand and then started to move. Today, I'll teach you this. You have to be fast and accurate. If the opponent attacks you, you have to remember that you have to dodge the opponent's attack at the same time. At the same time, you can't determine whether the opponent has a follow-up move. Therefore, during the time when you dodge the opponent's attack, use the knife to block the opponent's fatal point. This is very important. Yun Jian repeated the movements just now. Her moves were clean and neat. Zhang Xiaofeng listened and nodded. Even Xuelinwei was surprised. A cloud of doubt floated in the hearts of everyone present. Who taught Yun Jian such good moves? Chapter 693. Zhang Xiaofeng was still trying to understand the moves that Yun Jian had just taught him. At this time, Zhang Xiaofeng was very serious. His serious look made Chen Xini, who wanted to make a dig at Zhang Xiaofeng, shut her mouth. Yun Jian turned her head slightly and looked at Ningbin for the first time. Ningbin had been talking to himself, so Yun Jian didn't pay attention to him at all. Perhaps there were indeed many girls who liked to talk to and get close to a guy like Ningbin who liked to act cool and pretentious. Seeing that Yun Jian finally turned her head and intended to talk to him for once, Ningbin was wild with joy. He looked at Yun Jian, looking forward to Yun Jian's answer. This anticipation was partly because Yun Jian finally paid attention to him for once, and partly because Ningbin really wanted to know who taught Yun Jian her moves. Do you believe me? Yun Jian's lips curled up. Her eyes were shining, making everyone's eyelids twitch. Yun Jian's answer made some of the boys present even more unconvinced. TSK, who are you trying to fool? As the saying goes, the master can show you the way, but the cultivation depends on the individual. You said that you didn't have a master and taught yourself, so how could you have such skills? Someone was unconvinced and retorted to Yun Jian. This was indeed the truth. And the old saying was also reasonable. However, Yun Jian's moves were indeed not taught by anyone. She had comprehended them on her own. Other than the hypnotism that the old man had taught her. These killer moves were figured out by Yun Jian on her own. She was a living person who had crawled out from a pile of corpses. She had killed many people and dealt with many experts, so some moves naturally appeared. You don't believe me? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. Then she changed her tone. Her slightly curled lips instantly calmed down. What if I say that I'm an assassin who crawled out from a pile of corpses, and that's my experience after killing countless people? Would you believe me? Yun Jian's eyes darkened, and her murderous intent rose. She had never been a person who would do her job and speak her mind. As soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, even Zhuo Wei, who had just lost to Yun Jian, was stunned again. Assassin? If she was really an assassin who had crawled out from an assassin organization, then everything made sense. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Their eyes widened, and they all looked at Yun Jian. Kill, kill, kill. You're an assassin? Ningbin was terrified by Yun Jian. Just when everyone thought he was to tell the truth, she glanced to the side and sneered. You believe that? Yun Jian did not like people like Ningbin, so she did not hold back when she spoke. After saying that, Yun Jian immediately turned around. She was already walking toward Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. She even commented on Ningbin, stupid. When Yun Jian reached Zhang Xiaofeng and the others, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were already out of breath from laughing. In fact, from the beginning, Zhang Xiaofeng and the others were disgusted by people like Ningbin who liked to speak in a sarcastic manner and pretended to be arrogant in front of others. Yun Jian's action just now was obviously to attack Ningbin from the side. Yun Jian's action just now was more satisfying than directly insulting Ningbin. As expected, after Ningbin was criticized by Yun Jian, his face instantly darkened. Master, you're the best. Zhang Xiaofeng gestured at Yun Jian. Haha. Ling Yichen also laughed unkindly at the side. Yun Jian, I didn't expect you to be so good. Meng Lin could not help but praise. Chapter 694. Meng Lin also gave Chen Sini a big smile. There was a round clock hanging in front of the Taekwondo dojo. Yun Jian could see the time on the clock when she looked up. It was already 12 o'clock in the afternoon. At 12:30, Yun Jian had to go to the military training camp. She was supposed to spend an hour teaching Zhang Xiaofeng moves, but she didn't expect to encounter something like this. After everyone laughed, Yun Jian said to Zhang Xiaofeng, You continue to practice the moves I just taught you. I'll check on you the next time you come. Yun Jian meant that she was going to the military training camp. Zhang Xiaofeng and the others understood, so they nodded. Okay, master, go ahead. Haha, I'll definitely practice seriously. Zhang Xiaofeng was in high spirits. In Zhang Xiaofeng's heart, he had already set Yun Jian as his goal. Working hard towards his goal was what Zhang Xiaofeng wanted to do the most at the moment. Okay. Yun Jian nodded and was about to turn around and leave the Taekwondo dojo. Yun Jian, wait. Before Yun Jian could lift her foot to leave, Meng Lin's voice came from behind. Yes. Yun Jian turned her head slightly and looked at Meng Lin. Yun Jian had a good impression of Meng Lin, so Yun Jian wouldn't ignore her. I'm going to start school tomorrow. I'll be leaving at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Because I'm out of the province, I might not be able to come back for a long time. But I'm definitely going to make friends with you. You can come and play with me during your next break. Yichen knows where my school is. Meng Lin invited Yun Jian. It was apparent that the tomboy Meng Lin, who was tall and short-haired, was really planning to befriend Yun Jian. Okay. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. She looked at Meng Lin's bold appearance and immediately agreed. Okay. Meng Lin also nodded vigorously at Yun Jian. Under everyone's gaze, Yun Jian walked out of the Taekwondo dojo. If he left for the military training camp at 12 o'clock, he would naturally arrive on time at 12:30. Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, and the rest had been training at the training ground since early in the morning. When they saw Yun Jian, the rest of Team Monarch gathered around her. Chu Xiangnan walked up to Yun Jian in an even more exaggerated manner and said bluntly, Hey, Yun Jian, did you know? I heard that our Officer Gu is getting married. And this news came from an old officer who is very close to Officer Gu. He said that the date hasn't been set yet, but this matter is most likely going to happen. What do you know? Go away, go away. I'll tell Yun Jian now. Chu Ning pulled Chu Xiongnan away and squeezed herself in front of Yun Jian before continuing. Yun Jian, don't listen to that idiot Chu Xiongnan's nonsense, but it's true. It's said that Officer Gu divorced his ex-wife a long time ago and is planning to get married after the new year. That's because this morning, Officer Gu submitted a marriage application to the higher-ups. I wonder who's lucky enough to marry Officer Gu now. It's really hard to find a man as good as Officer Gu. Chu Ning could not help but be a little infatuated. After all, Gu Yunjian's looks were not bad. With a proper military face and a proper military uniform, Gu Junjian was really worthy of a valiant military posture. However, even though Gu Junjian was already in his 40s, it was not hard to tell that Gu Junjian was not bad-looking when he was young. Since Officer Gu is so good, why don't you marry him? Chu Xiongnan glanced at Chu Ning. He did not realize that he had said something so sour. CKU. Chu Ning clenched her fists and chased after Chu Xiongnan as soon as she heard him. Yun Jian chuckled awkwardly, the corners of her lips twitching subtly. What should she say? That the person who said that Officer Gu was getting married was her mother? It turned out that Gu Junjian had already submitted a marriage application to the higher-ups. Chapter 695. However, Yun Jian did not expect Gu Junjian to act so quickly. He had just confirmed his relationship with her mother not long ago, and he had already applied for marriage from his superior. However, it was obvious that Gu Junjian was sincere about Qin Yiru, and Yun Jian was relieved. Chu Ning and Chu Xiongnan soon got into a fight. Lu Shiyun and the rest glanced at Chu Ning and Chu Xiongnan helplessly. How childish! Jiang Weiwei chuckled, but there was no hint of mockery in her words. To Jiang Weiwei, she had already integrated into Team Monarch. Jiang Weiwei might have been conceited before, but she had the right to be conceited. Of course, that was before Yun Jian appeared. People would always grow up, and Jiang Weiwei was one of those people who matured. Chu Ning jumped up and knocked on Chu Xiongnan head out of habit. Then before Chu Xiongnan could react, she ran back to where Yun Jian and Jiang Weiwei were and hugged them to hide. Damn it, damn it! Chu Xiongnan called out in dissatisfaction, but he did not chase after Chu Ning to argue with her like Chu Ning did. Although his code name is Lei Ting, he's actually being beaten up by girls. Even the taciturn Hong Fan could not help but use simple words to describe Chu Xiongnan's situation. Lei Ting was Chu Xiongnan's code name. When these words came out of Hong Fan's mouth, they sounded very different. Damn it, Hong Fan, even you dare to say that about me. Take this. Chu Xiongnan gave in to Chu Ning, but he would not give in to a boy. Therefore, after hearing Hong Fan's words, he charged at Hong Fan, and the two of them hugged each other. Just as Chu Xiongnan and Hong Fan were having fun, Yun Jian's melodious voice was heard again. Officer Gu is here. Upon hearing that Officer Gu had arrived, Chu Xiongnan and Hong Fan, who were huddled together, immediately let go of each other. The two of them were like primary school students who were fooling around in class, but suddenly saw the teacher and immediately sat up straight. Chu Xiongnan quickly loosened his grip on Hong Fan. He looked around and shouted, Hey, where is he? Where is Officer Gu? Yun Jian smiled. I lied to you. After hearing Yun Jian admit to lying, Chu Ning could not help but laugh out loud. She laughed so hard that tears almost rolled down her cheeks. She didn't expect Yun Jian to be a liar. After laughing, Chu Xiongnan and Hong Fan started fooling around again. Lu Shiyun calmly walked over to Yun Jian and said, We'll be going to the military academy in Min City in a few days. We'll be going home once every month or half a month. As soon as Lu Shiyun finished this steady topic, Chu Xiongnan and Hong Fan, who were still fooling around, stopped their movements. Everyone turned to look at Yun Jian. Yun Jian was currently in her third year of junior high school and could not enroll in the military academy yet. As for Team Monarch, they had been together for a long time. Now that they were about to part under such circumstances, it was natural for them to feel a little sad. After all, Chu Ning and the rest would not usually come to the military training camp if they were to go home once a month or half a month. Once they went to the military academy, the training grounds would naturally become the academy's own grounds. Aya, why are you all so sad? It's not like Yunjian won't come to the military academy to look for us. It's just half a year. Chu Ning tried to lighten the mood, but she was feeling rather sad too. That's right. Yunjian, you can come and look for us during your holidays. Chu Xiongnan added. Chapter 696. Lu Shiyun sounded confident when he said that, speaking to Yunjian in a rather serious tone. That's right. We'll work hard to become people who can fight alongside you. Every member of Team Monarch must live up to this title. Feng Xiaoran followed up Lu Shiyun's words and promised Yunjian with equal vigor. As soon as Feng Xiaoran finished speaking after Lu Shiyun, everyone present chimed in to support Lu Shiyun's words. There were no weaklings in Team Monarch. The king was someone who stood at the top of the world. They would not be weaklings. They would live up to the title Yunjian gave them and become true kings. All right. Just as everyone's vigor was about the same and everyone declared that they would fight alongside Yunjian, a voice as thick as Mount Tai sounded. Everyone turned to see Gu Junjian walking in from outside the training ground. It was obvious that the voice just now came from Gu Junjian. Gu Junjian was deeply moved by their majestic declaration. He quickly stood in front of them and said, with such determination, it means that all of you have the potential to become powerhouses. The future belongs to all of you. Gu Junjian might be different from other officers. He would be stern when it was time to be serious and would joke with them when it was time to be joking. However, he would not be stingy with the encouragement and rewards that were due. After Gu Junjian said those words, everyone then realized Gu Yunjian's arrival. Yunjian smiled as she stood at the side. Heh, Officer Gu, I heard that you're getting married. Is that true? Chu Xiongnan immediately adjusted the situation that had been in high spirits earlier. Once Chu Xiongnan asked Gu Junjian about this, everyone's eyes were fixed on Gu Junjian. It was normal for subordinates to be curious about their superior's privacy. As for Gu Junjian, other than being stern when it was time to be, Gu Junjian was usually very amiable. Gu Yunjian's solemn mood was instantly turned red by Chu Xiongnan words. Officer Gu, just tell us about it, okay? You have to treat us to your wedding banquet. We will definitely come to your wedding banquet. Chu Ning looked at Gu Junjian expectantly as if she wanted to know everything about Gu Junjian. Well, cough cough. Gu Junjian was embarrassed by their stares. He clenched his fist and coughed softly. Train well. Don't think that I can't control you guys just because you're going to the military academy. Before you go, all 6 of you have to pass the assessment with me first. Gu Yunjian's face turned red from the scolding. He waved his hand and tried to change the topic. Are you serious? Officer Gu, aren't you being too harsh? Chu Xiongnan immediately shouted weakly when he heard Gu Yunjian's words. That's right, Officer Gu. You haven't told us who your bride is yet. Hee. Chu Ning cleverly changed the topic. Say it. Chu Xiongnan stood at the side and cheered for Chu Ning. In front of Chu Ning and Chu Xiongnan, these two clowns, Gu Junjian suddenly felt very helpless. It was not that Gu Junjian did not dare to say it, but how was he supposed to bring it up? Was he supposed to say that it was Yunjian's mother? It was a little strange to hear that from his own mouth. Everyone's gaze shifted to Gu Junjian. Chapter 697. Yunjian's sudden words shocked everyone present. When they came back to their senses, they turned to look at Yunjian. Are you kidding? Officer Ji's bride is actually Yunjian's mother? Chu Xiongnan looked at Yunjian in shock. His face twitched in shock, and it was obvious that he had yet to recover from the shock. Oh my god! Officer Gu and Yunjian's mother. Chu Ning shouted as well. Apart from Chu Xiongnan and Chu Ning, the rest of the people present were also dumbfounded. However, they were not as exaggerated as Chu Xiongnan and Chu Ning. However, Lu Shiyun, Feng Xiaoran, Hong Fan, and Jiang Weiwei were still in disbelief. Officer Gu, is this true? Are you sure you're not joking? After all, it was such an unbelievable thing that everyone present was shocked. Chu Xiongnan even turned to look at Gu Junjian and asked seriously. If this was true, wouldn't Officer Gu become Yunjian's stepfather? Yes, she's right. She's not joking. Officer Gu nodded. Everyone present was stunned again when Gu Junjian admitted it himself. However, since the matter was out in the open, they did not dwell on it anymore. After congratulating Gu Junjian and Yun Jian, the group began their daily training. When it was almost 4:30 p.m., Gu Junjian drove everyone home in the jeep. In the car, Fang Xiaoren mimicked Chu Xiongnan and joked with Gu Junjian. No wonder Officer Gu always sends Yun Jian home last. So it's because he wants to stay at Yun Jian's house. Everyone present let out a cry of relief. Oh, Gu Junjian did not feel awkward at this moment. He chuckled and sent everyone home as usual. In the end, Gu Junjian drove the jeep directly to Yun Jian's house. Yun Jian and Gu Junjian stepped into the house at the same time and saw Qin Yiru walking toward them. You're back. Qin Yiru rubbed her hands. Her hands were still wet, and it was obvious that she had just washed her clothes. Yes. Yun Jian nodded and went upstairs to look for Ce, Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duan Ya. Yun Jian directly ran to Xiao Yunzhu's bedroom. She saw Ce casually sitting on the bed with her slender legs apart. Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duan Ya were stacking building blocks on the floor. At this moment, even Duan Ya, who had been quiet all this time, revealed a smile. However, Duan Ya was still as silent as before. Of course, this could not be blamed on her. After all, Duan Ya was still young, and because of the way Duan Shi treated her when she was young, Duan Ya's heart had suffered a severe blow. Of course, at this moment, Duan Ya was smiling. This meant that Duan Ya was not born with facial paralysis or someone who did not know how to smile. As soon as Yun Jian walked over, Ce took her hand and pulled her into his embrace. Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duan Ya were still stacking building blocks behind Ce and Yun Jian's backs. Therefore, Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duan Ya did not see Ce's action. Ce was sitting on the bed. He pulled Yun Jian into his embrace, and Yun Jian was pulled to sit on his lap by Ce. Yun Jian did not wear much today. Because of the hot weather and the fact that they were going to the military training camp, Yun Jian did not wear much. She was only wearing a pair of thin pants. Ce pulled her to sit on his lap. Because he was sitting on the bed, Yun Jian could even feel the clamor of a certain part of his lower body. Chapter 698. She was afraid that Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duan Ya would notice her awkward situation, so she allowed Ce to continue taking advantage of her. Sitting in this awkward position, Yun Jian was so shy that she could barely control herself. Let go. Yun Jian mouthed silently to Ce. Of course, she didn't make a sound. She was currently sitting on Ce's lap, and she could feel the sensation between her legs becoming more and more obvious. In an instant, she became extremely shy, and an unknown blush covered her face. I'm not letting go. Ce also mouthed silently back to Yun Jian. At this moment, he turned his head to the right, and his eyes met with Yun Jian's. When Yun Jian heard this, she became even more embarrassed. This was the first time she had been hugged by a boy, and it was also the first time she had been so close to a boy. This is a house that I built. At this moment, Xiao Yunzhu's excited voice sounded. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched. Usually, at this moment, Xiao Yunzhu would excitedly turn his head to look at Yun Jian and Ce. Then he would happily shout, "Big sister, big brother Ce, come and see, this is the big house that Xiao Yunzhu built." If Xiao Yunzhu saw her sitting in such an embarrassing position on Ce's lap, how would she be able to face him? Big sister. Yun Jian had just thought of this. As expected, Xiao Yunzhu was extremely excited. As he shouted, he wanted to turn around to tell Yun Jian and Ce about his magnificent feat. Yun Jian struggled to break free from Ce's embrace. However, Ce held her even tighter, and Yun Jian could clearly feel that something in Ce's lower body was swelling. If you move, I'll... Ce tilted his head and looked at Yun Jian. His lips curled into an evil smile as he mouthed silently to Yun Jian. That evil look of his was asking for a beating. Ce purposely said the word, I, and didn't say anything else. However, Yun Jian understood what Ce meant even if she didn't know anything about men and women. She blushed instantly. At this moment, Xiao Yunzhu, who was about to turn around, was attracted by Duan Li's words. It's not nice. The big house I built is nicer, Duanli said proudly. Xiao Yunju was so shocked by Duanli's words that he forgot to turn around and ask Yunjian and Ce. He understood women's hearts quite well, so he immediately went along with Duanli's words. All right, the big house you built is better than mine. Duanli's face immediately lit up and she smiled happily. As soon as Duanli laughed, Duanya laughed as well. Xiao Yunju's childish face gained a hint of handsomeness. When he saw Duanli smiling happily, it was as if he had encountered something delightful, so he smiled brightly as well. Seeing that Xiao Yunju was restrained by Duanli and did not look over, Yunjian breathed a sigh of relief. She was about to hit Ce's head to make him let go of her when Qin Yiru's voice came from downstairs. Xiao Jian, Ae, come down quick. Mom has something to tell you. With Qin Yiru's shout, Yunjian's heart clenched again. Usually, if Xiao Yunju heard Qin Yiru's shout, even if it was not directed at him, he would quickly turn around to see what was going on, even if Qin Yiru was not shouting to Xiao Yunju. At this moment, he was still sitting on Ce's lap. Fortunately, even Qin Yiru's shout could not stop Xiao Yunju from playing with Duanli and Duanya. Yunjian breathed a sigh of relief as well. She felt like a thief right now. Chapter 699. Xiao Yunju suddenly turned his head because he wanted to ask Yunjian and Ce if his house or Duanli's house was prettier. However, before Xiao Yunju could finish his question, he saw Yunjian sitting on Ce's lap. Yunju, what's wrong with you? Duanli glanced at Yunju out of the corner of her eye. Seeing that Yunju had turned around and remained silent, she turned her head as well. Duanya imitated Duanli and turned her head as well. However, Yunjian had already jumped down from Ce's lap, so Ce no longer had any motivation to do so. Duanli and Duanya, on the other hand, did not see the shocking scene of Yunjian sitting on Ce's lap. Ahem, nothing. Yunjian pretended that nothing had happened. She glared fiercely at Ce, which made Ce's heart itch even more. At this moment, Yunjian had already walked downstairs. Ce saw that Yunjian was a little angry and had even learned to ignore him. He smiled helplessly and followed her downstairs. Xiao Yunju, who was dumbfounded, remained in his previous position. Duanli saw that Xiao Yunju was dumbfounded. She hurriedly asked Xiao Yunju, Yunju, why does big sister seem angry? Xiao Yunju was dumbfounded. Then he opened his mouth and said, I saw big sister sitting on Ce's lap just now. Duanli seemed to think for a while. Then she said, then they must be playing games. Yunju, let's continue to build the house. Thus, the three children continued to play with the blocks in their hands as if nothing had happened. They built a bigger and more beautiful house. Mom, what's wrong? Yunjian, who had just come downstairs, saw Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru sitting on the sofa in the living room. Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru were close to each other with blissful smiles on their faces. It was a heartwarming sight. Xiao Jian, Ae, come and take a look. We've picked 2 wedding dates but we don't know which one is the best. Qin Yiru was brimming with happiness as she leaned her head on Gu Yunjian's shoulder with a smile. Yunjian went over with a smile. Ce had his hands in his pockets as he followed Yunjian over. It was both Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's second marriage. Moreover, they already had children now, so there was no need to make such a big fuss about their wedding. Of course, there was still a need for some extravagance but both Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian agreed that since it was their second marriage, there was no need for an engagement. Although it was her second marriage, from what Qin Yiru could tell, this wedding was truly of her own accord. She was forced to marry Yun Gang previously. It was not sincere at all. Therefore, Qin Yiru was as excited as a little girl when it came to choosing a wedding date. Yunjian took the calendar from Qin Yiru and saw 2 dates circled in red. Yunjian pressed her lips together before she pointed at one of the dates and told Qin Yiru, this one. Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian craned their necks to see Yunjian's finger pointing at the 21st of the May calendar. 21st of May. 5:21. Let's choose this date. Gu Junjian said with a glance. Okay, we'll listen to Xiao Jian, Qin Yiru replied softly with a smile. Chapter 700. Once the wedding date was set, it was time to send out the invitations. Since it was their second marriage, Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian would not hold a large-scale wedding like they did with their daughter. Besides, other than Dong Wan and Zhang Meihua's families, Qin Yiru did not have any important relatives or friends. Gu Yunjian's parents had passed away early, so other than some of his comrades in the military, he did not have anyone else to invite. Moreover, it was their second marriage, so there was no need for a grand wedding, so they kept it simple. "I'll write the invitations and send them out tomorrow," Qin Yiru said. Qin Yiru's handwriting was beautiful when she was still a student and was once praised as a model handwriting by her teacher. "Sure." Gu Junjian nodded. It was only then that Qin Yiru looked away from Gu Junjian and turned to Ce, saying, "Ae, if it's convenient, you can ask your family to come as well." Qin Yiru only knew that Ce's mother had passed away early and that the child was quite pitiful. As for other things, Qin Yiru did not know. Qin Yiru only thought that even if Ce's father did not treat him well, his father's family should not be bad, right? However, Qin Yiru was wrong. Ce's family was complicated and was an internationally renowned arms family. "I don't have any family," Ce said coldly. To Ce, there was no such thing as a father or family. His father treated him as a tool and only wanted to use his marriage to gain more benefits. As for his family, those people could not wait for him to die. If that happened, Lang Gu would really have no heir. When that happened, his so-called family would then have a chance to fight for the right to inherit Lang Gu. Qin Yiru was stunned, not expecting Ce to say that. But thinking about it, if this child's family treated him well, he wouldn't have rushed back home for only a short while. Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian thought that Ce went abroad every once in a while because Ce went home every once in a while. In Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's opinion, Ce's family was overseas and Ce was just a rich man's son. "Ae, it's fine. Your Uncle Gu and I are your family from now on," Qin Yiru nodded at Ce with a smile and said gently. When Ce heard Qin Yiru's words, his lips curved into a smile. Xiao Jian's family would be his family from now on. He also had relatives? "Mom, I'll help you with this." Yunjian went over to help when she saw that Qin Yiru was still writing the invitation with a black pen. "Oh sure." Qin Yiru did not reject Yunjian's offer to help her write the invitation. She had already written down the person she wanted to invite on another piece of draft paper. Yunjian's handwriting had her style as well. Yunjian's handwriting was neat and familiar with a hint of elegance amidst the scribbles. Her handwriting was beautiful as well. Yunjian took the black pen from Qin Yiru and helped Qin Yiru copy the content of the invitation into the beautiful rectangular invitation. A handwritten invitation was more sincere. Yunjian looked at the invitation attentively as she wrote. She wrote seriously. Qin Yiru snuggled up to Gu Junjian with a gentle gaze. Qin Yiru suddenly caught a glimpse of Ce from the corner of her eye. Ce was looking at Yunjian with a doting gaze. Ce's gaze gave Qin Yiru a strong feeling that even if Yunjian wanted the stars in the sky, he would give her the entire universe. The more Qin Yiru looked at Ce, the more she liked him. Chapter 701. It only took Yunjian half an hour to finish writing the invitations for Qin Yiru. Since Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian had already drafted the invitations beforehand, Yunjian just had to copy them. "Mom, I'm done," Yunjian said as she handed all the invitations to Qin Yiru. There were not many people to be invited, but there were actually a few invitations written. After all, Gu Junjian had plenty of comrades. Qin Yiru nodded and took the invitations from Yunjian, saying, "Xiao Jian, thank you for your hard work." Yunjian smiled and tucked the strands of hair by the side of Qin Yiru's face behind her ear. "Mom, it's not me. You're the one who's worked hard," Yunjian said with a gentle smile. Qin Yiru had been worried sick for Yunjian and Yun-yi back then. No one could deny that. After some small talk and packing up the invitations, Qin Yiru went to prepare dinner. Yunjian and Ce followed Gu Junjian out for a stroll at the small park near the villa. There were not many people strolling in the park, but the scenery was quite nice. When they came back from their stroll, dinner was ready. "Wash your hands and come eat." Qin Yiru spoke when she saw Yunjian, Ce, and Ce coming back from their stroll, bringing out the last dish from the kitchen. Yunjian, Ce, and Ce answered and went forward. Qin Yiru called Xiao Yunju, Ce, and Ce down from upstairs as well. The table of delicacies was filled and the group enjoyed the meal. Other than Yun-yi, Dong Ruan, and Dong Ruan's son who had gone out to visit friends and relatives, everyone else was present. Yun-yi was a student of the first senior high school. She lived on campus as soon as the school started. As for Dong Ruan, she didn't go home at all during the new year because she was a high-ranking official and was used to carrying her briefcase everywhere. During the first few days of the new year, Dong Ruan was so busy that she was nowhere to be seen. As for the past few days, Dong Ruan was free, so she took the child to visit relatives and friends. Even now, she was still busy. Dong Ruan also came back halfway, but she didn't stay at home for long. Although Dong Ruan's husband had passed away early, Dong Ruan was filial. She treated her deceased husband's parents as her own parents and supported them. Qin Yiru knew that Dong Ruan had probably brought her son to the countryside to stay with her in-laws. Wow, so many dishes! As soon as Duanli sat down at the table, she was attracted by the variety of dishes in front of her. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Eat more if you like it." Qin Yiru said as she set the table for Duanli with a smile. Duanli nodded vigorously at Qin Yiru's gentle look. "Yes, yes. Mother Qin, you're so nice." Duanli and Duanya ate the most during dinner. The two children were like wolves who had been starved for days, devouring all the dishes on the table. Qin Yiru's heart ached for them. Why did the two children have to suffer so much? It was just an ordinary dinner, but they said that there were many dishes and they ate with relish. "Eat slowly. Don't choke." Qin Yiru's eyes sparkled as she reminded them carefully. Duanli nodded with rice in her mouth. After dinner, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya went upstairs again. Chapter 702. Qin Yiru placed the plate of cantaloupe on the low glass table in front of the sofa in the living room and said, "These are freshly cut cantaloupes. I saw an old man selling vegetables at the market today and he said he planted them himself. They're very fresh and hygienic. Come and have a taste." Yun Jian poked a piece of cantaloupe with a toothpick and tasted it carefully. Ce, on the other hand, snatched the toothpick she had used and picked up a small piece of cantaloupe as well, chewing softly as he swallowed it. He smiled slightly. When he saw Yun Jian glaring at him angrily again, he felt as though he had just eaten honey. However, he still smiled and praised, "Delicious." Qin Yiru did not see Ce snatching Yun Jian's toothpick, but Gu Junjian did. However, Gu Junjian raised his head and laughed heartily without saying anything. To Gu Junjian, children should be left to figure out their own feelings. "All right, I'll be making a trip back to Xinjiang town tomorrow. I'll take the opportunity to send out all the invitations tomorrow," Qin Yiru said with a smile as she took a bite of the cantaloupe. "I'll go with you tomorrow," Gu Junjian said. Qin Yiru was going to her parents' house to send out the invitations and tell them about it. Naturally, Gu Junjian had to go as well. After all, it was basic etiquette. When Yun Jian heard that Gu Junjian was going to Xinjiang town, she pursed her lips and glared at Ce without saying anything else. Actually, Yun Jian was a little worried about Qin Yiru going back to Xinjiang town to send out the wedding invitations. Back when she had started New Cruise, her nominal grandmother, Qin Yiru's ex-mother-in-law, had asked Qin Yiru for money. If news of Qin Yiru's remarriage got out, Yun Jian was afraid that Lu Lanhua would stir up trouble again. In spite of it, Yun Jian was relieved with Gu Junjian around. After finishing the cantaloupe, Yun Jian told Qin Yiru that she was going to New Cruise. Qin Yiru turned and ran upstairs to get a jacket before chasing after Yun Jian, shouting, "Xiao Jian, it's cold outside at night. Put on a jacket before you go out." However, just as Qin Yiru went upstairs to get a jacket, Yun Jian was already out of the house. "I'll bring it to her." Once he heard that Yun Jian had gone out without a jacket, Ce went over to take the jacket from Qin Yiru and chased after her with his long legs. "Slow down." Qin Yiru could not help reminding her when she saw Ce running after her. "We can care less about the kids in the future. They're all grown up now." Gu Junjian said to Qin Yiru as he swallowed the last piece of cantaloupe with a chuckle. "How can we as parents not care?" Qin Yiru sighed and went to Gu Junjian. Spring was coming and the weather was gradually turning warmer. The temperature in the day could already reach around 30 degrees Celsius, but it would turn cold at night. Yun Jian felt a gust of cold wind just as she stepped out of the mansion, but she did not turn back. Yun Jian was only wearing 2 layers of clothing, a thin autumn jacket underneath. When the cold wind blew, she still felt herself shivering. "Are you dumb? Running out without a jacket?" Si Yi's rich male voice came from behind, his magnetic voice coming from between his thin lips. Yun Jian was stunned. In the next second, a jacket was draped over Yun Jian. Chapter 703. Yun Jian felt warmth in her heart as Si Yi led her forward. Although she was scolded by Si Yi for being dumb, her heart was like a cup of warm milk that was about to be poured out. It was a novel feeling. Si Yi took Yun Jian to New Cruise first. The company was relatively peaceful now and Zhang Jifan was in charge of it. Not long ago, Yun Jian had arranged for Zhang Jifan, who was managing New Cruise for her, and Su Zetian, the former boss of Dragon Head Gang who was managing Falcon Hall on her behalf, to meet each other. Yun Jian had also arranged for New Cruise and Falcon Hall to work together to improve. One was New Cruise that had made a name for itself in the country, while the other was the biggest mafia in Longmen City that had replaced Flying Passage's position as the second mafia in Jia Province. With the combination of the two forces, New Cruise and Falcon Hall were invincible in Longmen City alone, let alone anywhere else. When news of New Cruise and Falcon Hall's collaboration was first spread, it had caused a stir in Longmen City. After all, both of them were the most powerful forces in Longmen City. Now that they were working together, who else in Longmen City could go against them? What outsiders did not know was that be it New Cruise that had stirred up a storm in the car marketing industry or Falcon Hall that had changed its name and was led by a woman named Slaying Luo to become the second mafia in Jia Province, they all had one thing in common. They were now just one of Yun Jian's forces. If the news were to spread, the whole of Longmen City would probably be embarrassed. "Sister Jian, Su Zetian wants me to tell you that Jia Province's top mafia group will be gathering all the major mafia groups in Jia Province in 2 weeks' time. They've invited various international businessmen and politicians. It'll be a grand occasion, so please attend as Falcon Hall's representative." Zhang Jifan conveyed the message to Yun Jian on behalf of Su Zetian. Zhang Jifan was in charge of New Cruise now, so he did not encounter any bottlenecks. Su Zetian was heavily injured before the new year, so he could not attend the Jia Province Mafia gathering this time. However, this gathering was different from the usual gang gatherings. For this gang gathering, Jia Province's #1 gang, the Leopard Pack, had invited many international businessmen and politicians, including some top figures. Under such circumstances, as long as one was smart, one wouldn't let go of this opportunity to make more connections. "Okay." Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly and agreed. As for Falcon Hall, Su Zetian had left a lot of things to Duan Lei because of his serious injuries. However, Duan Lei still couldn't put on airs. After all, he hadn't been the boss before. After Yun Jian agreed, Zhang Jifan felt relieved. After staying in New Cruise for a while, Yun Jian and Si Yi went home. New Cruise was not far from the villa, so the round trip did not take up much time. It was just a walk. Just as he reached home before he even stepped into the house, a female voice called out from behind him, "Yun Jian!" Yun Jian turned around and saw Lan Su in a black outfit. The tall and slender Lan Su was the center of attention no matter where she went. At the moment, Lan Su was supporting a man covered in blood with her shoulder. Yun Jian took a closer look and quickly realized that the man was Adam. She was stunned. "What's wrong with him?" Si Yi asked Lan Su before Yun Jian did. After all, he was Si Yi's subordinate. If something happened to Adam, Si Yi would naturally be upset. "Someone attacked us just now, Lan Su had no more strength to speak up to this point. Her whole body leaned forward, and just as she was about to fall to the ground with a thud, Yun Jian reached out and held Lan Su as fast as she could, preventing Lan Su from falling to the ground. Chapter 704. "Come in." There was a glint in Si Yi's deep eyes as he spoke. Although she did not know what had happened, Si Yi spoke calmly. "I'm in." Yun Jian nodded and helped Lan Su into the house. "Xiao Jian, you guys are back." Qin Yiru knew that Yun Jian and Si Yi had returned when she heard the door open. She turned around and asked at the same time. Before she could finish, however, Qin Yiru saw Yun Jian helping Lan Su who had fainted into the house. Xueqi, who was supporting Adam who was covered in blood, followed closely behind. Adam and Mo-sen stayed in the villa and followed Xueqi all the time, so Chin-Yiru recognized them right away. She was so shocked that the bowl in her hand fell to the floor before she ran over and shouted, What's going on? What happened to the two kids?" Mo-sen came to the staircase from his room when he heard the commotion. When he saw Adam covered in blood, his eyelids twitched and he jumped down from the railing on the second floor without a word. The height of one floor was nothing to Mo. Senator Chin-Yiru had already helped Yun-jian to help Lan-su into the house. Mo-sen, on the other hand, ran to Adam. They helped Lan-su and Adam to the big sofa on the first floor to lie down. Chin-Yiru was pacing around anxiously. "What's wrong with the kids? Why did something like this happen to them?" "I'll go to the shop not far away and call for an ambulance," Chin-Yiru said and planned to run upstairs to get her wallet to call the shop outside. "Mom, don't go." Yun-jian's icy voice rang. Yun-jian's icy tone made good Yun-jian, who was about to stop Chin-Yiru from taking out her phone from her pocket, pause. "Xiao-jian? This person had fainted. And he was covered in blood. Let's send him to the hospital. Any later and..." Chin-Yiru was so scared that her hands were shaking. When Chin-Yiru's hands were severely injured by the loom, she had already lost all feeling. She originally thought that her hand would be gone, but she didn't expect the hospital to treat it. Therefore, once something happened, Chin-Yiru always believed that she could send the patient to the hospital as soon as possible. This concept was indeed correct. However, Xinjiang Town's hospital did not have the standards and equipment to treat Chin-Yiru's hands at the time. Back in Xinjiang Town's hospital, Chin-Yiru's hands would have been amputated if Yun-jian had not acted as the lead surgeon. "You can't go to the hospital," Xueqi repeated what Yun-jian had just said. Why are you the same as Xiao-jian? If we don't send this person to the hospital quickly and something really happens, then..." Chin-Yiru was obviously scared out of her wits, but to her, it was true that she had acted out of concern for Lan-su and Adam's safety. "I know medicine," Yun-jian's voice rang while Chin-Yiru was at a loss. Chin-Yiru and Gu Junjian were stunned. Xiao-jian? How could you?" Chin-Yiru did not believe it, of course. Chin-Yiru was indeed stunned when she heard Yun-jian's words, but she was the child she raised herself. How could she not know how capable her daughter was? Chapter 705. What Yun-jian said to Chin-Yiru was indeed a little overboard, but it was the truth. Moreover, it was an emergency now. Yun-jian did not have the time to explain so much to Chin-Yiru. "Mo-sen, go to my room and get the medical kit. It's under the wardrobe facing the entrance, the first cabinet on the left," Yun-jian told Mo-sen before Chin-Yiru could react. "Yes." Once Mo-sen heard that Yun-jian knew medicine and had medical equipment at home, he sprinted upstairs almost at the same time. He looked like something would happen to Adam if he was a second late. "Xiao-jian." Chin-Yiru was surprised. She could not help looking at Yun-jian and asked softly. "It's okay, we believe in her." Gu Junjian pulled Chin-Yiru into her arms and comforted her softly. Lan-su did not have any external injuries, so it was hard to tell where she was hurt, but Adam's condition was much worse. There was a bullet in Adam's left knee while his shoulder seemed to have been stabbed several times. There were numerous wounds of various sizes all over his body. It was a ghastly sight. "We have to prepare for surgery immediately. I don't have all the equipment here." Yun-jian frowned. The reason why Lan-su and Adam could not be sent to the hospital was simple. Lan-su was from Yulong mainland. According to Lan-su, people from Yulong mainland had different physiques from people on Earth, so they could not be sent to the hospital. Adam was shot all over. If he was sent to the hospital, it would no doubt cause a huge uproar. The use of firearms was prohibited in Country Z. Once it was discovered, the consequences were severe. Therefore, both Yun-jian and Xueqi agreed that Adam should not be sent to the hospital. "It's here." Mo-sen had already jumped down from the second floor with ease, and he was carrying a white medical box in his hand. Chin-Yiru did not expect her daughter to have a medical kit. She was stunned for a while. She suddenly felt that her daughter was different from before. After spending some time together, the current Xiao-jian could always surprise her, which made Chin-Yiru suspicious more than once. However, no matter what, Qin Yiru would never think that her daughter was not her daughter. Therefore, she did not ask Yun Jian about it. Yun Jian took the medical kit from Mo Sen and took out the items in the kit as fast as she could out of habit. At the same time she said to Mo Sen, "Go to Falcon Hall's headquarters and bring Falcon Hall's private doctor, a man named Su Zifan here. Tell him to bring the surgical tools. He must be quick." When Su Zetian was seriously injured, it was Yun Jian who was the chief surgeon. Then, with Su Zifan's assistance, the operation was easily completed. Su Zifan could only be considered as half of Falcon Hall's private doctor before Yun Jian hired him to be Falcon Hall's private doctor directly. Yun Jian was halfway through her words when Mo Sen dashed out. Since it concerned Adam's life and death, Mo Sen was duty-bound, just like how Adam had done for him back then. "Auntie, let's go out first." Ce was not well versed in medicine, but he knew that it was disadvantageous for the operation to be carried out with too many people around. He went to Qin Yiru and told her. In spite of it, Qin Yiru was not in the mood for Ce at all. She looked at Yun Jian and asked in surprise, "Xiao Jian, you have dealings with Falcon Hall too?" Falcon Hall was the top mafia group in Longmen City. Qin Yiru knew that Xiao Jian was the director of New Cruise, but it was enough to shock her. Chapter 706. Yes, Yun Jian nodded without hesitation when she met Qin Yiru's probing gaze. After a pause, Yun Jian pursed her red lips and said softly, "I do have dealings with the people from Falcon Hall. Mom, you know that New Cruise is just a legitimate force. You've probably heard about the collaboration between Falcon Hall and New Cruise." Qin Yiru was relieved after Yun Jian's explanation. After all, there was news that New Cruise and Falcon Hall were collaborating. However, Yun Jian did not reveal that she was the boss of Falcon Hall. In fact, Qin Yiru would be more worried about her if she revealed her identity. After all, it would not be a problem if she was just a company's director. However, if Qin Yiru found out that she was the boss of Falcon Hall, it would be a huge problem. By then, the fact that she was not the real Yun Jian would be exposed as well. Yun Jian did not stop decorating the surgery site. "Yiru, let's go out first. We need good air circulation during surgery. Yun Jian will be fine. Don't worry, we have specialized medical personnel in the military who have taught them all this. Don't worry, she'll be fine." Gu Junjian pulled Qin Yiru out. Gu Junjian already knew that Yun Jian was slaying God, so Gu Junjian quickly came out to smooth things over for Yun Jian. At the same time, he helped Yun Jian lie. Qin Yiru was skeptical at first, but after hearing Gu Junjian's explanation, she believed him immediately and followed Gu Junjian out. After Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian walked out of the door, Mo Sen rushed in with a middle-aged man in less than 10 minutes. "Young madam, is this the person?" Mo Sen suddenly tossed the middle-aged man who was carrying a bunch of medical boxes in front of Yun Jian. Falcon Hall's boss. Su Zifan recognized Yun Jian immediately when he saw her. Just as he was about to call out her name, he was stunned by Yun Jian's hand gesture. Yun Jian put her right index finger to her lips and made a sh gesture. Then, Yun Jian spoke as expected. "All of you go out. Only Su Zifan and I will be in here for the surgery." Ce put a hand in his pocket. He did not know medicine, so it was useless for him to stay. Therefore, Ce walked up the stairs and told Yun Jian gently, "I'll go watch Xiao Zhu and the rest." Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duanya were still upstairs. When C went up the stairs, Mo Sen told Yun, "I'll be outside." After that, Mo Sen left the place. Su Zifan looked at the man who suddenly rushed into his house and took him and the tools for the surgery out of the living room. He looked at Yun Jian and said carefully, Yun Jian directly cut off Su Zifan's nonsense. "Be my assistant and I'll give you 15 seconds to prepare." Only then did Su Zifan see the man lying on the sofa covered in blood. He swallowed a breath and walked forward. The 3 people standing at the door waited for more than an hour. However, because Yun Jian was in the room performing the surgery, no one dared to enter the room or ask. Until Su Zifan ran out of the room to open the door, Mo Sen rushed into the room. Seeing that Adam lying on the sofa had stopped bleeding and had regained his color, he breathed a sigh of relief. Yun Jian had already placed Lan Su in her room. Lan Su was just too weak and fainted. Chapter 707. Yun Jian was not surprised to see that Lan Su had woken up. She picked up a cup of tea that she had prepared earlier and handed it to Lan Su. She then said, "Don't be anxious. Have some tea first. Adam is fine." Lan Su and Adam had come back together. Needless to say, something must have happened while they were walking together. Yun Jian was already a little suspicious. However, she still helped Lan Su up slowly. She let Lan Su lean against the headboard and let her drink some water first. "Is he really all right?" Lan Su heard Yun Jian's words. She obediently swallowed the water in the cup before asking in a serious tone. Naturally, she was referring to Adam. "I just operated on him. He should wake up in a while." Yun Jian glanced at Lan Su. Lan Su and Adam had just met yesterday. Moreover, the two of them had been at loggerheads since the beginning. In the end, it had only been a short while and Lan Su had already started to care about Adam? Lan Su's pale lips regained some color. She nodded and then explained to Yun Jian, "It's the people from the Murong clan of the Yulong continent. They're also here." Lan Su's beautiful face gradually paled when she mentioned the Murong clan. Murong clan? Yun Jian could not help but frown slightly. It was the first time she had heard this name. Lan Su nodded at Yun Jian and then began to explain. The Murong clan was one of the great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. However, thousands of years ago, when the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe was still alive, the Murong clan was not even a millionth of the sorcerer tribe. It could be said that the Murong clan thousands of years ago was just a small aristocratic family. Its status was so weak that it could be ignored. However, after the sorcerer god's fall, the Murong clan gradually rose to prominence. Today, the Murong clan had already become one of the 4 great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. Its status was even close to surpassing the current number 1 aristocratic family of the Yulong continent. The shaman tribe, which was gradually declining, became the Murong clan's toy. As for today, Adam was dissatisfied with the draw he had with Lan Su yesterday, which was why he went to challenge Lan Su to a duel, but he did not expect that he would run into the people from the Murong clan. That was why today's incident happened. "With your strength, you should be able to defeat the Murong family, right?" When Yun Jian heard this, she could not help but ask Lan Su. Lan Su suddenly paused. After a few seconds she said calmly, "On Earth, our strength is greatly limited. That's why we usually don't use the abilities of the Yulong continent here. Otherwise, we'll have to pay a huge price." Lan Su then added, "The members of the Murong family are no match for me." Then, Yun Jian turned to look at Lan Su with a smile on her face. Lan Su, who was almost embarrassed by Yun Jian's stare, finally got to the point. "That's why the people from the Murong clan brought guns. I couldn't use the abilities of the Yulong continent easily, so I only brought darts. However, I didn't expect that he would block those bullets and bayonets in order to save me." Lan Su tossed aside the skills she had learned in the Yulong continent. She was not weak, and darts were her forte. However, there were many people from the Murong clan at that time. Although Adam was powerful, he was outnumbered. Chapter 708. What are the consequences of using your powers on Earth? Yun Jian asked as she took the empty cup from Lan Su's hand and placed it on the bedside table. She gently laid Lan Su back under the blanket. "I won't be able to cultivate for 100 years. Lan Su watched as Yun Jian covered herself with the blanket. Her thin lips moved slightly, and a trace of seriousness appeared on her cold face. Even Yun Jian couldn't help but move her lips when she heard Lan Su's words. 100 years was a person's lifetime. Most people didn't even live to be 100 years old. Old people in their 80s or 90s were already considered to have lived a long life. Using Yulong mainland's powers on Earth was equivalent to not being able to take a single step forward for 100 years, no matter how hard one cultivated. This was a huge price to pay. It was no wonder. The younger generation of the Murong family that Lan Su mentioned, including the people from Yulong mainland who came to Earth, would definitely not use Yulong mainland's powers. After all, stopping one's cultivation for 100 years was crueler than taking a cultivator's life. Yun Jian hesitated for a moment, then paused to ask. At the critical moment, Lan Su had already made her move. This meant that Lan Su's cultivation wouldn't be able to progress for the next 100 years. I'm fine. Lan Su revealed a sweet smile. Her usual cold face coupled with her current smile made Yunjian's heart skip a beat. Have a good rest. I'll go downstairs and take a look. Yunjian said as she tucked Lan Su under the blanket, then walked downstairs. However, just as she walked out of her bedroom, she saw Ce standing at the top of the stairs. His tall and slender figure was very eye-catching. Ce's black hair moved. He turned slightly towards Yunjian, then walked towards Yunjian. How was it? Ce looked at Yunjian. He raised his eyebrows and continued to ask. Yunjian then told Ce everything that Lan Su had told her. He stood by the wall near the staircase so that the people downstairs wouldn't see him. When Ce heard this, he frowned slightly. After raising his eyebrows, Ce said to Yunjian, "You have to be careful in the future." What do you mean? Yunjian quickly guessed Ce's thoughts and raised her eyes slightly. Yes. Ce nodded. Then, without giving Yunjian time to think, he held Yunjian's little hand and went downstairs. Ce's meaning was simple. Since the Murong family from the Yulong continent had come to Earth, and the younger generation of the Murong family had died at the hands of Lan Su, the Murong family would definitely not let this matter rest. With Gu Yunjian's help, Qin Yiru did not have many suspicions. In the next few days, Yunjian did not go to the military training camp. Chu Ning and the others had already gone to the military academy in Min City. Adam was originally living in the villa. For a short period of time, Lan Su was also living here. Qin Yiru was kind and took care of them every day with good food and drinks. The days passed by quickly. Yunjian also went back and forth between her home, school, new cruise, and Falcon Hall. Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding invitations were sent out. 2 weeks later, Adam, who had long regained consciousness, recovered a lot. These few days, Mo Sen and Lan Su fought to take care of Adam. Adam felt that he was 100 times more energetic. This week, Yunjian also received the verdict of Duan Li's father, Duan Shi, for abusing his child. Prison term: 2 years. This verdict was because Duan Shi had been detained by the police for abusing his child and refused to repent despite repeated warnings. Chapter 709. On this Saturday morning, Yunjian led Zhang Xiaofeng and Yunyi home after their morning exercise and went home with Yunyi. Ce had already returned to an Hun group with only Mo Sen tagging along. As for Adam, Lan Su was taking care of him at home due to his serious injury. Perhaps it was because Adam had risked his life to save him, but Lan Su was much nicer to him now. Ce had a feeling that Yunjian was involved in the assassination attempt previously, as well as Adam and Lan Su's encounter this time. So Ce had returned to an Hun group to investigate the matter thoroughly. Yunjian took a hot bath when she got home and changed into a clean set of clothes before dragging a small suitcase out of the house. Qin Yiru was no longer a cleaner in New Cruise since it was Yunjian's company after all. If Qin Yiru was still working in her daughter's company as a cleaner, she would feel bad for Yunjian's reputation. After all, Xiao Jian's status was not what it used to be. As her mother, she could not embarrass her daughter no matter what. Moreover, Gu Junjian supported Qin Yiru not going to work, so Qin Yiru cooked at home. Xiao Jian, walk slowly. You have to be worried when you're outside. Don't get tricked. Don't listen to strangers. Qin Yiru ran out and shouted behind Yunjian when she saw her dragging her suitcase out of the house. Mom, I know. I know, Mom. Moreover, I'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. Yunjian turned to her side, her petite frame looking even more alluring. Yunjian then flashed a smile at Qin Yiru and strode ahead. She lied to Qin Yiru again, saying that she would not be able to make it back tonight because New Cruise wanted her to attend a business meeting. In fact, she was going to attend a gang gathering in Jia Province. However, as the top gang in Jia Province, Leopard Pack did invite a representative from New Cruise. Since Su Zetian was too injured to participate, Yunjian had no choice but to represent Falcon Hall. Zhang Zhifan would be going with him, but Zhang Zhifan would be representing New Cruise. Qingyu had been there when she attended the National Gang Tea Party, but Qingyu was still in her hometown now. It was only natural for her to get along well with her family since they could reconcile. When Yunjian arrived at New Cruise's store, she could see Zhang Jifan waving at her from afar. "Sister Jian." Zhang Jifan greeted respectfully when he saw Yun Jian. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded and then asked, "Is everything ready?" "Yes, Sister Jian, we can leave any time," Zhang Jifan told Yun Jian as he pointed at a mini tour bus behind him. They were all waiting for Yun Jian's order. "Let's go," Yun Jian said and dragged her suitcase forward. There were only 2 people with Yun Jian on this trip: Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. Su Zetian could not go due to his injury. Leopard Pack was the top gang in Zhe Province and was based in Hang City, the provincial capital of Zhe Province. It was not far from Longmen City, only a 2-hour drive at most. Yun Jian was going to Hang City today and would only stay for a night before returning the next day. She had brought her suitcase with her because she had brought her firearms. When Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan boarded the tour bus, Duan Lei, who sat in front, turned to look at them. "Sister Jian, I'm driving?" Yun Jian nodded softly. Chapter 7:10. Duan Lei drove steadily. By the time he reached Hang City, it was already past 9 in the morning. "Sister Jian, let's drop off our luggage at Xian Garden Hotel first." Duan Lei's eyes were glued to the front as he drove, but his voice was directed at Yun Jian, who was behind him. Yun Jian replied with a nod as she looked out the window. Xian Garden Hotel was a 5-star hotel that Leopard's gang had arranged for all the major gangs in Zhe Province who were attending the gathering, as well as businessmen, politicians, and internationally renowned figures from afar. The gathering this time was at 8 in the evening. It would be late by the time it ended, so Leopard's gang had prepared a suite for everyone who came from afar. They could check in as long as they reported their identities to the receptionist at the front desk. This was how Leopard's gang's boss treated the guests from afar. "Sister Jian, let me help you with your luggage." When they reached the bottom of the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel, Yun Jian's luggage could not be moved anymore. It had to be lifted, so Duan Lei ran over to help Yun Jian with it. Yun Jian had already retracted the luggage handle swiftly and was 1 step ahead of Duan Lei to lift the luggage. "It's okay, I'll do it myself," Yun Jian said. As she spoke, Yun Jian carried the luggage to the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel easily. Seeing this, Duan Lei didn't insist and followed closely behind. Just as they reached the entrance, they were greeted by a mother and son pair. The mother who walked in front was dressed to the nines. She looked to be in her 20s or 30s as she strutted toward the entrance with her son swaying her hips. Behind this young mother and child, there was a large group of bodyguards dressed in black. Coincidentally, the group of people and Yun Jian met one another, one entering and one exiting. Yun Jian did not mind. After she went up the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel, she put down her luggage and pulled the lever again to drag it forward. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan followed behind Yun Jian as well. Only one door was open at the entrance of Xian New Garden Hotel. The other doors were closed as usual. Yun Jian was already 1 step ahead and was about to enter the New Garden Hotel. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan followed behind Yun Jian. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother saw her and frowned slightly. Then she looked at Yun Jian with disgust, as though she was unhappy that Yun Jian had entered the hotel before her and blocked her way out. Therefore, when Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother opposite her quickened her pace. Yun Jian had already noticed the young mother's actions. She frowned slightly and acted as if she didn't notice the young mother taking large strides towards her. Disregarding everything else, the young mother was definitely a competitive person. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother pulled her son's right shoulder and tried to use her right shoulder to knock Yun Jian as though nothing had happened. Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She suddenly realized what was going on. She was 1 step faster than the young mother. She reached out to pull the lever and swiftly lifted her luggage to dodge to the side. The bodyguards behind the young mother were dumbfounded. How could this young lady be so agile? You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.